It's because you're an absolutely insufferable clout shark desperate for attention.
Maybe, yeah, people told me to read the room, but like I think it's like able. It's not everybody can read the room, you know.
Do you have like another job or income or anything like that?
No, I have rich parents, but like I don't have a job. Basically, the oppressors of the situation, the gay men, are the people doing the drag. They're probably black people who like blackface. They probably felt seen by blackface. I'm not saying that everyone did. I would be friends with a gay first if they were nice to me. It just never ends well. So.
This is straight to the point. What are your thoughts about black people? Hey, how's it going?
Good. So, I just want to start this off by asking you, how much do you know about me? What have you seen of me? And what led you to your conclusion that I'm just an annoying person? An annoying troll, if that.
I've watched, you know, some of your content. I've watched some of your debates. I've watched that music video you did, Simp.
Yes. Wait, have you streamed it on your like Twitch or just like watch it in your own time?
Yeah, I streamed it on stream and everyone hated it.
My viral TikTok song. It wasn't the highest quality. Sad face.
People thought it was really bad, yeah.
Hey, Hassan thought it was bad too, but it didn't stop it from getting 200 million views on TikTok. Okay.
I mean, you could upload a video of someone taking a shit and it would probably get, you know, quite a lot of views, couldn't you?
Hey, it's supposed to be a nice stream.
Well, no, because you said you wanted to debate me, and you kept going, debate me. What do you even want to debate about?
I don't know. To be honest with you, first of all, I want to ask you why you think I'm annoying, though. And then we can talk about, like, what specific views of mine you think are the most outrageous. And we can go from there.
Okay. Here's why you're annoying,
Why am I annoying? Okay.
It's because you're an absolutely insufferable clout shark desperate for attention.
Wait. Okay, I've heard that before, though. Like, you're not adding... Like, because I keep going on other people's streams and like, want attention and want to grow my channel, is that so bad? Is that so terrible? Is that so, like... Why does that make me annoying? It just makes me really good at growing. It just makes me, like... like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a Chad move.
Okay, so my sensibilities are perhaps a bit different from yours. I just find it's a bit obnoxious to kind of be in people's faces and their replies. You know, with Xander Hall yesterday, you were in his replies, and then you were like, "Hey, I've spoken to all of these people. Why don't we speak?" Like, you see how that's a bit obnoxious?
Honestly, I think that I was perfectly reasonable. Like, I was telling him that I agreed with him, and I don't know why people are trying to cancel me because I was, like, defending him. I was like, that woman fucking lied. She's a fucking liar. I agree with you. And then I also was like, hey, long time no see. We should chat again. I see nothing wrong with what I said.
Okay. I tell you what we're going to do, because I've got to be honest with you. I feel like there's a bit of a misrepresentation here going on. You know, you were kind of acting like you're like, hey, long time no see, as if you're best buds, we should talk again. That's not really what you said, is it?
I mean, yeah, you can say, be like, oh, actually, I listed all the people I've debated with in the past. It's called building a resume. It's building a resume.
Okay.
People apply for every other job, and it works.
This is a two-parter, so I'm going to read the two parts to you. So the first thing you say, I may be true scum, but that's truly a scummy thing to do. Could you just...
Hey.
What does that mean?
That's a banger. That's a banger right there.
Okay. And then, you then went on to say this. Okay, go on. Okay, you said this. I'm fully on your side, by the way. False allegations are the worst, and I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. Would love to talk to you, by the way. I don't know if you've been following, but I've made a name for myself by talking to Vosh, Destiny, Keffels, Hunter Avallone, Dylan Burns, etc.
Yeah, I just said that I agreed with him. That's all I said. I said that I agreed with him, and I'm siding with him. I am taking his side in the allegations. And people are trying to cancel me for that.
Well, okay, do you really think you're being cancelled?
No, not really. But people are way too mad about it. Like, yeah, I know it's like kind of like shitty to be like, well, actually, hey, I'm gonna self-promote. Like, maybe, yeah, people told me to read the room, but like, I think it's like able. It's not everybody can read the room, you know. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Don't come on. You're just bullshitting me with that. I don't even give a shit about that, do you?
Like, it was a little insensitive, but like I didn't intend for it to be. I wasn't thinking about that. I just was like, oh, I haven't thought about Xander Hall in a while. This is the first time I've thought of it in a while. Maybe this is a good time to, put myself out there. And it's worked for me so far. I mean, how do you think I got in all the other streams? It's clearly it worked. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, if you get like a stone in your shoe, eventually, even if it's annoying, you might carry on for a little bit, but you'll eventually stop and take it out. You're the little stone in the shoe being annoying.
You know, it's funny because I actually I put on Twitter recently that I had this whole plan of like my next style of content because I kept thinking to myself, okay, eventually people are gonna get sick of me, so I have to figure out how I want to evolve my content. So I'm like, okay, I got to make these long video essays with like 2 to 3 people featured per video, or I talk extensively about a topic, and then people will watch the video and be like, holy shit, this is weird. I want to debate you on this topic. So I feel like as soon as I stop getting the calls, as soon as I stop getting the requests of, hey, I want you on this stream. Hey, I want you on this panel. I feel like that's my plan moving forward. So it's like I've already thought about this through, but for now, I'm just riding this wave as long as I can. Like I rode the wave of like my TikTok song. I'm riding this wave. I'm just having fun. And what's so wrong with having fun?
Well, but then you're giving the game away, right? Because, you're first acting like, oh, come on, I'm just networking. But you admit you're riding the wave. You're having fun with it. You're memeing. You're giving hot takes
And I'm
that you don't
working.
really believe.
I'm doing it all. I'm doing it all. And I do believe my hot takes. I'm having fun, but that doesn't mean I'm fake.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little exaggerated. It's a little hyperbolic, but like I didn't tweet that shit like the fucking like device about the anti-rape thing. Like I didn't tweet that thinking it was going to go viral. I just tweeted it because I thought it was just like any other tweet. I didn't think it was that controversial.
So you didn't consider that the idea of criticizing someone that chooses to wear that to the point you think they should go to jail for life versus the rapist, you didn't think that would be controversial?
To be honest, if I could go back, I wouldn't have said the jail for life. I don't agree with that, but that's the only thing I really disagree with. I think saying that person deserves to be in jail for life is pretty yikesy. But besides that, I think I pretty stand by what I said. I mean, that device is like adding more harm than needs to be. Like you have harm and you're retaliating harm with more harm to the world. I don't like it. It's not good. It's not a good thing.
Okay. Let's look at some of these. I want to see what people were saying about you. Let's get a little flavor of public opinion of Rose Mulet, shall we? So.
It's not going to be pretty.
So, please, just a grain of attention, just a drop of clout. I'm famished. That's the first one.
Okay.
Let me hop into the middle of this domestic dispute for clout. And they got your greatest hits here too. It's almost as shitty as your rapist deserves to live, even if you have the means to stop the rape by killing them.
Yeah.
So they got your greatest hits in there too. That's good. Shameless. Okay, maybe you can respond to this one. This is from In Pursuit of Knowledge. There is a reason I unfollowed this bitch.
Well, I didn't know who that person was, so I'm sorry. If you want to have fun again, I'm always there. Maybe my next controversy will convince you otherwise.
Okay.
You can't win them all. You never can. Also, I'm not gonna like cry about what people on me are saying on the internet because like the people close to me know who I am. The people close to me care about me. So it's like I have thick skin from like having people say the worst shit about me. So it's like you can say all this stuff about me. It's not gonna really impact me all that much. And I think that's something I'm proud of.
Okay. Yeah, this is just, you're getting absolutely slaughtered here. Does it not bother you to like be the kind of butt of the joke so constantly?
A little bit. It feels like a bit isolating and I don't like it. I mean, I wish people liked me more, but what can you do? I mean, the way I see it, it's like either I'm going to be a part of the conversation, like you have to get in the door somewhere, right? Like you can start off, but like over time, I'm hoping I can evolve into like a better content creator. And through experience of doing all these debates, I can actually like evolve really good takes and evolve like really good, unique strategy. I feel like I'm in my discovery phase. I'm still like early on in this like transitional phase. And eventually I'll figure out like this amazing thing that I'm going to make for myself. But I got to be patient, I'll have up and down periods. I think I'm at the end of this up period and I'll have another up period eventually,
So
Cherry, I'm playing the long game.
Cherry, who is Xander manager, good person to get your foot in the door with if you want to speak to Xander, said, "Please fuck off forever."
Yeah, so I think that was a little bit of a misfiring on my side personally. I would say that like a lot of the time, like me being outrageous and me like putting myself out there is the reason I was able to get all the debates that I did. But at the same time, that the behavior also like has the consequence of getting people to not like me and having the opposite effect sometimes. If I could be able to better control that, that would be ideal. But sometimes I do take it too far, you know, and sometimes I make miscalculations. I mean, who know that being impulsive on Twitter leads to bad decisions, right? Like, who would have guessed that?
Okay, sure.
You know?
Well, look, I mean, listen, I'm actually finding your tale quite interesting, to be honest. Now you're being a bit more, I feel like you're being a bit more open and honest. That's good.
Yeah,
I,
why not? I'm reaching the end of this wave, so I mean, you got to reveal your cards eventually.
so I guess what I'm interested to understand. So you've been around for a little while, from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
What are you looking to achieve?
I'm looking to achieve, I guess, fame that starts off as infamy, infamy that evolves into a deep appreciation. There's this thing called the mere exposure effect that the more you're exposed to someone, the more they grow on you. So I just want to get myself in as many places as possible. Like, you know how advertisements, like you'll see like a bottle of Coca-Cola on like a TV like a bajillion times. Like you may not want it, but after you see it a bunch of times, you think, oh, this actually is fine. Like I actually like this. Like eventually, I think people will grow accustomed to like my style, and they'll want to like more of it. They'll want to eventually like find more of me, and like that's really my goal here. It's free advertising. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's a good strategy for growth. I think it's underutilized. I keep moving from community to community. You know what works for me, and I've done politics before as a trans woman. I'm affected by it, so it's like I feel like I found something that works for me. And I'm like, if this, you know, I don't know if I'm going to do this years from now, or if I'm going to like stop in like a few months. But you know, I'm just having fun. You know, I'm not taking things all that seriously. I'm pretty set. I don't really have like anything to lose from doing this, so I'm just having fun while we go.
Do you have like another job or income or anything like that?
No, I have rich parents, but like I don't have a job. I'm like in college, but I'm gonna graduate next year and potentially get like a master's degree in something. So I basically like I guess part of it is like, oh, I just want to like blow up on YouTube because I would love to never have a real job because that would be like the goal. If I don't ever have to work, like that's a W. But if I do have to work, like I have a college, I'm gonna have a college degree. I have like plenty of other options that I can choose from. As long as I don't work retail, I think I'll be okay.
So you're basically just a rich brat desperate for attention on the internet. That seems to be the case.
Yeah, but hey, at least I'm honest about it. I feel no shame. I
But
feel
you're not
no
honest
shame
about it,
about
are
it.
you?
There's
Not
nothing.
always. Not always.
I'm not. I tweet about that all the time, though. Like, I mean, I don't say it to everyone I talk to, but that's like, am I gonna tell everyone on the street? By the way, I'm a trans woman, guys. Hey, friend. Hey, I'm Rose, the transgender woman. Nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Rose Mulet. I have rich parents. How are you doing today? Like, you know, I tweet about it every once in a while. Like, you know, people know, but I don't say it all the fucking time. Like, unless it's relevant. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
but what I mean is, okay, so I want you to be really honest with me. You know that
I've
debate
been
you had
careful
with
with that audio. The
yeah,
Hunter Avallone debate.
yeah, the Hunter Avallone debate. So I watched it. Now the impression I got is that Hunter Avallone was dealing with you very honestly and very earnestly, but it seems to me like you just tweeted out something spicy to get on, and I don't know how committed you really were to your position. Just seemed to be like the
Which one
memes.
was it? Was it the most recent one? The Don't
Yes,
Fight Back? Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
that. So, okay. I have a backstory. So, I made the tweet that I didn't expect to go viral. And then Hunter Avallone quote tweets it and asks me to come on again. So, I'm just like, okay. And then the day I come on, I'm like asleep and I accidentally like miss it by like 15 minutes or whatever. And he's like really mad that I'm like late. I look like a mess on camera because I literally just woke up a few minutes before and I was already late. So, I didn't have time to like get ready and stuff. So, it was like a very weird conversation. Um, I feel like that wasn't my best performance. I'm not super duper proud of it. I think I learned a bit from it. Like at the end of the debate, I consider that okay, maybe pepper spray is okay to use on rapists. Maybe that's fine. I still don't believe like murder is like okay, but like I'm more sympathetic to it. But I know people are just gonna watch that and think Rose Mulet's evil. She's like pro rape, and it's like okay, but like I learned from that conversation, so I feel like I'm a better person because of it. You know.
Okay. Um. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what like. Is there anything you wanted to talk about specifically, or I appreciate you probably just mainly wanted to get onto the stream. But is there anything in particular you want to speak about?
You know, it's funny because when I talk to like Destiny and Vosh, like the funny, like they'll tell you I had like these long fucking paragraphs of like every single belief, the controversial I had. Do you talk a lot about trans issues on your stream or no?
Yeah, bloody yeah, loads. Like you wouldn't believe.
Okay, what do you think about like I don't know if you've heard about my belief on like drag queens and femboys. Do you have like a opinion about that? Like, is that
I'm
easy for
homophobic,
you?
so that leads to a lot of my perspectives. But why don't you tell me what
You're
you
from
believe?
I think that drag and femboys and shit are like extremely harmful to trans people because like my genuine gender identity is just me being a woman, and these people are like I think it's important to have male clothing for men and women clothing, female clothing for women. And if you remove that, like if men can just wear dresses and women can just wear tuxedos, then there's no point in gender identity, and all you have left is biology, and that like erases trans people. And like basically, like, people will call you they them all the time. People will like think they're being woke by like singling you out as a trans person. I mean, it's just all this shit that it's like this is supposed to be the people on my side, but they're like making my life worse for me. Like I cried reading the trans testimonies in Destiny's Manifesto because it's like holy shit, I feel seen. Like you
Yeah,
know,
I'm
like
sure, but I mean, in Destiny's Manifesto, I don't think there was anyone talking about drag queens
yeah, I don't think they talked about drag queens. Maybe they disagree with me on that, but
because I
that's just
understand
I
even
gotta fight. I gotta
um
fight for this shit. Gotta
yeah
fight for my
because
beliefs.
I mean even Gammy, who is quite a controversial figure amongst that sort of community, even they disagreed with your take about the drag queen thing. So I think that's kind of quite unique to you in this space. Maybe other people believe it, but it's not a common talking point that you know. I mean, I've heard the meme of like drag is just blackface for women. I mean,
Based. I
I don't know. Is
agree.
that something you agree with? Okay.
Oh, 100%. I've argued that in debates before. By the way, I debated Gammy on this, and people are like, "Oh, you made Gammy look reasonable." It's like, oh my god, like I'm so sorry. Like I, that's like I know that there's other trans people who agree with me. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to have these opinions, and I
Mhm.
feel like the people in this space like probably don't. But I'm just sick of these fucking turfs and all who are like, well, actually, I've seen this before when I first came out of transition. People would say to me like, well, actually, people, you can be a boy and wear women's clothing. It doesn't make you like a woman. It's like I feel like that's what the turfs are doing, and I feel like that's what these gender neutral people are doing. They're like, well, actually, you can be like a femboy, you can be like a drag queen. It's like they're adding all these other fucking options for people to like avoid actually transitioning because for whatever fucking reason they prefer all these other shits. Like have all these other options, and it's like no, it's just gonna hurt trans people. People who would just genuinely be pretty straightforward trans are now going through this bullshit because society is telling them that no, you're not actually a trans woman. Gender is not real. You're not truly fully a woman. No, gender is a social construct. Female and female brains do not exist. It's a spectrum, and solely because you're trans, you fall somewhere. It's all this other shit. I've heard the worst. I'm sick of it.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to. I will engage with you somewhat seriously on the femboy point. So let's say
Yeah.
you got a young lad, say 21 years old, and they decide that they want to present very feminine and they want to wear like those fishnets and all this shit they wear. Like them taking that action, how does that actually hurt you? What's the process there?
Yeah, so a man being a femboy and like dressing as a woman hurts me because it like hurts the societal notion of gender. So like these people are now going to have misconceptions on what gender is. They're going to have misconceptions of what trans people are. And as soon as you open the doors of actually gender expression doesn't equal gender, like gender expression is tied to gender identity. It's not the only part of gender identity, but it's very important to have these things where you can express yourself and based on the clothing you're wearing, you can identify what identity the person is going for and you can pronoun them properly. But as soon as you take that away, that life just becomes 10 times harder for trans people now. Their life sucks, and then everyone else in the LGBT community is like, oh yeah, I guess it's worse for you, but oh, too bad, guys. Trans people are going to suffer, despite us pretending to be trans inclusive on this. But it's important. Step aside, guys. You're not. We don't care about your rights. Oh, forget the fact that Republicans are well, not Republicans. I believe that there's like good Republicans. Forget the fact that lawmakers want to like pull rights against you. Forget all of that stuff. Oh, they're trying to like prevent trans kids from transitioning. No, that's not important. What's more important is that the femboys, the fucking it phase of the world, need to deserve to have the same rights as you, and we're gonna take over your community, and you're not gonna ever have a voice in this. So that's part of the reason why I
Okay.
do what I do. Like, I feel like it's
Listen,
important.
you just said a lot of words. So, for example, one thing you said was that it's like 10 times more harmful for trans people for there to be femboys. So, what specific ways is your life made difficult because of the existence of femboys that makes it like 10 times worse?
Because like I said, like you have like you have to have the so when femboys and drag queens exist, it makes confusion. Like people are now confused about trans people.
How do you know
People
that they're
aren't gonna.
Okay, how do you know that they're confused, and how are you quantifying that?
Hold on, I have to sneeze. I met a professor one time who the professor was essentially like basically they assume that all trans people go by they them, probably because they met one person. Let's get this straight. Most people in real life
Hang on,
don't know any trans people.
wait. Do you realize what you've done there? Because you've just said, the professor believes people go by they them because they met one person. Meanwhile, you're referencing this one professor to justify your view. So you're doing the same thing the professor's done.
I've had multiple experiences. That's just the first one that comes to my mind, but I get what you're saying. I just think that I've seen enough in like reality, like people, like most people in real life don't know a ton of trans people. So if you're trans, it's super important that you're not misrepresenting what trans people are. And I've just seen firsthand how these people can make trans people look insane. They can make people become more transphobic than they were before. And it's like, if you're going to be trans and open about it, like, be like normal. Like I'm just like a normal woman. These people who aren't normal, who are just like, well, actually, I'm a boy, but look at me, I dress cute in like feminine dresses and shit. Like, no, I'm sorry, I don't buy that shit. I don't think it's right. I strongly believe in traditional gender roles, and I think that trans people aren't really disrupting anything and just want to fucking exist within the current societal gender norms. Not everybody, but I don't believe in the people who are like trying to break the gender norm. Everyone should be non-binary. Gender should not exist. Gender is like I don't know. Some people just don't like the concept of gender, which is dumb.
I mean, there's certainly people out there who have got what I would consider to be kind of extreme views that I don't necessarily agree with. But I guess I'm just struggling to understand what this has got to do with femboys, really. I don't think there's any connection you've made between femboys and all this shit you're saying.
How is there not a connection?
Well, because I asked you, how do you know things are 10 times worse? And you said you met a professor once that thought you called people they, them.
Well, okay. Well,
you understand that's quite lackluster. Like, that's not really giving me much to go on, is it?
Well, I don't know how many studies there are on the femboy impact of trans culture. Like, I mean, what do you want me to, like, do?
I mean,
like,
if there's no studies, why
okay.
I mean, I don't know if there's studies or not either. But, like, I don't know. It just seems a bit. I just don't know why someone would look into that, because it doesn't seem to me to be something that would create an issue. If you got someone that's a man that dresses very feminine, I don't know if that's going to cause any more confusion to someone who would already be confused by a trans person in and of itself. I think the link between someone that's a transphobe and someone that doesn't understand femboys is probably quite close. So I don't think it makes that much difference anyway.
I'm gonna refer to something that's kind of similar to femboys, but it's existed for a long time in drag queens, and I can give you a direct example of how that's been harmful. So if you look at a lot of the transphobic misconceptions society has, that like trans women are just like men in dresses, or just like wear like basically they're mocking like women, like that comes from drag queens. A lot of the misconceptions stem directly from drag culture, right? So I mean, when you look at that directly, I mean, you can see clearly, like, the T-slur. The T-slur comes from the drag community. The she-male slur, that comes from the drag community. All of those, like, transphobia, they got that from somewhere.
I thought the T-slur would have come from transsexual, a long time ago. I mean, admittedly, I don't know the full background of every slur, but I don't believe that came from drag. How could it have?
I've heard people in drag communities use that word a lot, even when like trans people like are actually like, hey, stop doing this. Like RuPaul would do that kind of stuff. And also I've had people tell me that I can't be like a trad wife, or I can't be like a traditional woman because I'm a trans woman, and somehow my existence as a trans woman like implies that I'm like fucking weird or like not normal. And it's just like, I think that that's transphobic. Like, these are fucking like progressive people claiming this. There's just I just have so many issues with this community. It's insanity. I don't even know what to say.
And the term she-male, I don't know if that's from drag either. I thought that was like a pornographic term, and it was a historic term.
That too. I think that that's extremely harmful as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm anti-porn.
Okay. I'm just saying that I don't know if you can really put drag queens at fault for the those slurs that you're saying they're at fault for. I just don't believe that it's anything to do with drag queens. Drag queens have existed for hundreds of years, and some of these terms are kind of modern conceptions. I mean, I believe shemale came about to describe trans women in porn, probably what, 70s or 80s. I don't know for sure, but I don't know if that's because of drag queens. Drag queens have existed for a long time.
Okay. And that's like blackface existed from the same era, cultural era that drag did. I just think that it was like drag is essentially if blackface got to be woke. Like I've seen videos of people like basically put on blackface for Black Lives Matter, thinking that they're doing this good thing. That's the way I see drag. These people think they're doing this positive thing when really they're just mocking other people and they're spreading transphobic misconceptions.
Sure, but I mean, I just want to take it back a bit because you said one of your issues with drag is that because of drag, we have the term, we have slurs against trans people, and I don't think that's true. Why do you think that's true? Where have you got that from?
From what I've seen in these communities and how these communities use these slurs, and the fact that like men dressing up as women is like literally what drag is, and because drag is known within the societal culture, I mean, people didn't know that much about trans people, but what they did know stemmed from these bad influences. Like if you look at the TV, like there was like I forget what show this was. There was like this one TV show where they would like shock people by having like these trans women on, and then they would basically embarrass them on national TV and make them look like really bad. Like stuff like that is obviously going to create misconceptions and spread transphobia in society. So to pretend like that drag isn't doing that also is silly to me. Like obviously, like
Well, no, but
everyone's
you
got
can't
their
just say
transphobic
to pretend that
tendencies
it doesn't do
somewhere.
that is silly. You need to be able to somehow substantiate it. You're saying a bunch of stuff that isn't related to drag. You're trying to link it to drag. I don't believe that link exists. And then you're skipping on to another topic. So you're not actually, demonstrating a link between drag and this. You're not demonstrating the femboy thing. That seems to have kind of gone out the window. I just think you've got a lot of like issues with stuff, which some of that is, valid. But I just don't think it's linked to like drag and femboys in the way that you're saying it is.
Okay, but I have people tell me all the time that like trans culture is inherently linked to drag culture. So they're fine with saying that, but when I say actually it's also causing the misconceptions, for whatever reason, there seems to be like a lapse in people's judgment. It's like, oh, they'll say like, well, actually, yeah, drag and trans, they were like one and the same. We shared a similar culture, and then I'm like, okay, then do you admit that like drag actually caused a lot of transphobic misconceptions about what trans people are? And they're like, no, actually, they were really helpful to us. It's like, okay, we can't have a serious conversation about this because you're like
Okay.
that doesn't seem right to me. Like I don't understand this.
I tell you what, this will be interesting. Have you ever heard of pantomime before?
I have not. Educate me.
So pantomime is like a children's show that we have over in the UK, okay? And one element of a pantomime is what's called, it's an expression of drag, but basically sometimes one of the female characters will be played by a man in like a dress in a comedic way. So would this potentially be the kind of thing you might take issue with?
Oh, I would say, based on that concept alone, if there's drag involved, I guess so. Is this like similar to the drag queen story hour stuff?
Well, I tell you what, I've got an example here. Let's just show you, okay? You can tell me what you think about it. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts, okay?
Where have you been? I was in the wings waiting to come on and I was chatted up by one of the dancers, Mum.
You were in chatted on.
I can't hear anything.
You.
But
Oh,
based
really?
purely on how that person looks, I'm gonna give that a nope.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's a big fat no.
Okay. So this is happening here, right? This person is dressed up like this. In your mind, how does that like materialize as harm for trans people? What happens from here?
So when people think of like gender nonconformity, or well, people like not like not having the same gender identities that they were assigned at birth, the first thought that comes to their head is people being over exaggerating and mocking those gender aspects. So when they hear someone is coming out as trans, they often take this other example they've seen in their life and think that, oh well, they must be mockery too. They don't actually see, like, they don't understand what being a woman is. They're just a mockery of the concept. I've heard it so many times from people. They think that me being a woman mocks womanhood, is a mockery to what actual women or cis women are like. And so it's like, well, this is mockery of actual women. So, where do you think they got that idea from? I don't have any proof for that necessarily, but I feel like that's a
It's
pretty
just something.
reasonable,
It's
like,
just something. It's the way you feel about it, isn't it?
yeah. And as someone who's affected by this personally, I feel like I have a reason to feel the way that I do. I'm not everyone's going to agree with me, and that's fine. I would love to talk to like transphobic people and ask them about this and see if that's true or not. But I don't really talk to a lot of transphobic people. Big shocker.
Yeah,
Everyone's
I mean,
supportive in my life.
no, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think that the transphobia fundamentally, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it probably, but I think it's kind of rooted in the idea that, biology is real, a man cannot become a woman, and things like that. And I feel like the drag queen kind of stuff is like, I think it's like a historic kind of trend, and I don't know if you can really draw a line, as you say you can, between like drag and trans issues. I just don't know if it really exists, and I've not really heard much to convince me otherwise.
Can I just say something? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
It just bothers me that people are in society. It's more societally acceptable for someone to be a man and just like make fun of like the concept of being a woman and putting on a dress than it is socially acceptable to just me being a woman, right? Or to be a trans woman. Like historically speaking, back in like decades from long ago, back when blackface was a thing, like actors like who were white would put on black like faces so that they didn't actually have to hire black people because they didn't believe that like that could be the case. And also historically, like a lot of times, like men would dress up as women because they didn't believe that women should be allowed in these spaces either. So it's like there's a direct historical comparison of these two art forms having a similar history and a similar mockery. If for whatever reason we let one of them evolve and exist, and we've deluded ourselves into thinking that that's this positive reform thing, and the other one we don't touch with a 10-foot pole, and I just see a bit of hypocrisy there, and it really bothers me.
Sure. I mean, I think the thing is, I mean, I don't know what drag shows were like in the 1700s.
I mean, neither. It's all right.
Do you know much about like what they were like back then?
I don't. I've like read like a few things, but I'm not like super educated on the topic. Like I know a little bit, but I'm not like if you quiz me on it, I'd probably fail.
Well, no, that's fine. I'm just basically this is an interesting fact. So one of the reasons that drag came about initially is because they didn't want women to perform in theatre shows. They wanted it to all be fellas. Bit homoerotic if you ask me, but it is what it is.
I mean, I agree, but I mean,
Yeah. So, there's like a historical precedent there as to why that existed. It was, rooted in this kind of weird misogyny of like, hey, we don't want women performing in our stage shows. That's only for guys. And I think over time, it elaborated into more of like a performance art piece or something like that, rather than having the original origin of, hey, we're doing this to cut women out. It's, hey, we can make a pretty interesting artistic expression on the basis of a man dressing as a woman. And I'm sure you've seen some drag queens modern day. This is obviously an extreme example of the other way, but you've got ones that are very feminine and some that they put the stuff on and they look just like a woman. So is that not like a celebration of femininity then?
I'd say that also, like, if you're having someone be like a drag queen, and here's the reason I've seen this be harmful, right? I've had people say shit to me like, "Oh, honey, we're all just men in dresses," or that drag queen looks more like a woman than you are. So it's like the gay community specifically, because I've heard this from gay men specifically, people doing the drag and stuff. Like, I mean, it causes misconceptions within cis people. And then, basically the oppressors in the situation, the gay men are the people doing the drag will use it as like a tool to be like, oh, we're prettier than you. Like, we're prettier than real women. Like, it's so stupid. Like, I can't think of a world where this isn't harmful.
Okay, because the point I'm making is drag has adapted over time to become, in many cases now, a celebration of femininity. Whereas with blackface, you haven't seen that same pattern, and you know, it seems to have always been used in a way to sort of demean or diminish black people, and often comes with like, you know, extreme negative stereotypes and characterizations of black people. So I just don't think it's been through that same journey of like moving towards being an artistic thing, and it is just remained rooted in kind of a racist perspective, you know?
That's because we didn't let it. I guarantee you, if we didn't have this weird system, there is a world out there. There's an alternate universe somewhere where blackface is seen as people like priding themselves, you know, educating themselves on a different culture, expressing themselves as different cultures. And I'll bet you a lot of blackface performers like 100 years ago probably didn't really see anything wrong. There were probably black people who liked blackface. They probably felt seen by blackface. I'm not saying that everyone did, but like a lot of people didn't think it was that bad.
About that. I'm very skeptical about the idea.
It was fine at the time. In retrospect, it's easy to say shit, but back then, they didn't see it was wrong.
I don't think that black people looked at blackface and went, "Oh, I feel so seen," particularly when there was, you know, massive racism at the time, and they were excluded from large parts of society, and blackface represented their exclusion, you know, from the arts as well. So, I mean,
why is one of the most famous blackface performers a black person? Like, why is one of the last people to drop the blackface? I have to look it up. I took a class in university about this. Some fucking, I don't remember his name, but some guy who was a blackface performer. One of the last people to stop doing blackface was actually like black himself. Like you would think like that'd be weird. That's like people say, well, actually, trans people can do drag too. It's like, okay, black people can do blackface. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm not familiar with this story.
I'm not super familiar either.
I'd need more information to really come to any firm conclusions, but I've never heard of like the last person to do blackface was a black person. But yeah,
I'd have to look up his name because I don't remember.
Okay, well, you know, I can have a look at it by all means. But yeah, I mean, I just think that drag has transformed. I mean, certainly very initially. I mean, it wasn't, but the thing is then it wasn't even about trans women. It was about excluding just women, but it became more of a celebration and expression, you know, of femininity. And I just don't think that's happened with blackface. So I just don't think you can really compare the two things. But you seem to believe that in an alternate universe, drag would have gone the same way as blackface.
Yeah, if our societal like cultures were like slightly different, I think that could have been the case. Like if we weren't so set on like canceling it and ending it, it would have evolved into being this woke thing that could have existed today, or people would have deluded themselves into thinking that like putting on different skin color was actually celebrating different cultures. You know, because like I mean, people like for instance, they voice act as other cultures. They like put on voices of other cultures, right? Like it's not hard to see why somebody could like, you know, a white person could think, well, actually, by putting on this, like, you know, blackface and, like, seeing myself through the eyes of somebody else, I'm, like, learning more about their culture. I'm learning more about myself. Like, I think that's stupid and wrong. For the same reason I don't like drag. But I could totally see how that could be a thing. If there weren't so many cultural stigmas to it, it would be a thing. 100%. It would be.
Okay. What do you think of homosexuals?
I have a history of like gay people saying really bad shit to me that made me say homophobic things in the past, but I wouldn't call myself necessarily homophobic. I think for a long time I thought that I was, but I'm not.
Yeah, because I watched a video where, you know, you shared some pretty shitty things I think people were saying about you. And yeah, I think you had gone and said some homophobic statements, and you said that was because there were some gay people that were being mean to you, essentially. Is that about right? Or maybe
is this my apology video on my channel?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that what happened. That's pretty much like I said some homophobic things because I wanted to, like, as a transgender woman, right? Like I had a lot of gay men like basically preach like gay acceptance and then say the most evil transphobic stuff to me. Did some stuff to me that I'm not like. It was really bad. I'll just point you to it, right? But then over time, I wanted to distance myself from that. Like, I felt like being gay and being trans are so different and so, like, completely... I needed to basically prove to people that being trans has nothing to do with being gay. It's, like, its own, like, separate thing. Because people would, like, constantly call trans women, like, gay men and stuff, like, transphobes and stuff. So that motivated me to say the most homophobic shit possible. Because I thought that if I did that, then people would be like, oh, well, obviously she's like, there's nothing like at all. I was sick of it being seen as the same shit. I was sick of it being in the same community. And I thought that was like my big brain way of conveying to the world that like these things are very different. And it's so different that watch me as a trans woman being homophobic to prove that it's different. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's just an excuse for you being No, I really like, I don't think people are going to understand because they don't have the same experience that I did. But honest to God, that was the mindset that I was in at the time. Now, obviously, I'm not homophobic, right? A lot of those tweets that people want to cancel me for, like from when I was like 17 or something. Or 16. But like I've learned and I can understand like why I felt the way that I did at that point, you know?
Okay. So without breaking TOS, what homophobic things did you say?
No, without breaking TOS, I would say let's see. Somebody tell these people not to put things in the place. If you know what I'm saying, I would basically be like that. I used to think that like being trans, the end goal of being trans was just to be normal, and the end goal of being gay was to not be normal. So like I just want to be a normal woman, whereas their end goal is to not be normal. So therefore, we do not have the same goals and accomplishments. Like they want to change society. I want to keep society the same. So they're not my allies; they're my enemies. So I mean, I'm like ideologically opposed to them.
I mean, in what way do you feel that gay people want to change society specifically?
Their idea and their general idea is to like change like they're like in order for people to accept like two men or two women like marrying each other, you have to change society's views on marriage. You have to change what society views as acceptable. You have to like argue against what the Bible says. Like, you know, it's a lot more like you have to like if you see two people in public like dressing non-conform. Sorry about the door thing. If you see two people dressing in public like as clearly gay, you know, openly and flamboyantly being themselves or whatever, that's not typical.
Okay, that's really interesting. This is very interesting to me. Okay, so when you say dressing flamboyantly and dressing very gay, what do you mean?
You know how gay people typically, I'm not saying all gay people.
Well, how do gay people typically dress in your mind?
It's not even just the way that they dress, like the way that they act. Like some, you know, gay people just act a certain way.
Like mincing about the place. Is that what you mean? Like mincing about and go, oh, hello. Oh, you mean stuff like that, is it?
I don't know. I like,
you know, the way they walk. The way they walk gay, don't they? They walk very gay.
Yeah, I feel like there is actually a gay walk. There actually is. Like, I know, I feel like you're joking, but like they're unironically.
No, I'm not joking. Listen, okay, maybe this might mean something to you. I spoke to a philosopher actually a couple of weeks ago, and he explained this concept to me called anal grandstanding. And it's basically that what gay men, Benny was saying we're doing, we're dressing in very provocative ways, essentially to like show their anus because they want to be, you know what. So do you yeah, you called it anal grandstanding. I mean, does that kind of hit home with you? Does that mean something to you?
That sounds dumb. What the fuck?
Well, no, this is what you're saying, isn't it?
No, I would never use that word. That's a dumb word.
What, anal grandstanding? Yeah, but that's basically what you're talking about.
How is he a philosopher?
I mean, he's a philosopher from what I understand. You know, he's I think studied a lot of different kind of things, and he's come to this is his theory on gay men.
Are you trolling me right now?
No, I spoke to this guy. I'm being serious. I spoke to this guy, and his concept of how gay men engage with the world is through anal grandstanding. But I mean, listen, I don't know why. Wait, you're laughing at this, but it seems to me this is what you're describing of like gay men. Okay, well, what is it then? What is this gay thing men are doing?
I don't think that they walk specifically to show certain parts like that. I just think they walk in a different, like, effeminate way. I'm specifically mimicking the way that women walk, because, like, women walk differently from men do. It's just weird to see it from a man. And, like, I don't, it's, like, hard. It's hard to, like point down the specifics. It's just the way that they convey themselves in the world. Like, that's how people can usually tell when a person's gay, even if they haven't come out. And also how people can be shitty and just, like, purposely out people. Like, if they want to conform to society and not tell everyone about their sexuality,
wait a second.
do that.
You're missing a lot of gay people, because, yes, there's some effeminate gay men, but there's also very masculine gay men. You know, there's like bears who are very masculine, and leather daddies, things like that. I mean, what about those types of? I mean, because I know you're saying not all, but it seems like you're suggesting a large portion of gay men do this, and I just don't think that's true anymore. I think.
No, they're. Sorry, you think that
go
what?
on.
No, I want to hear it. I don't want to interrupt you.
No. I just think that, like, you know, the gay community is very diverse, and there's lots of different types of gay people that you can encounter and engage with, and you know, like on Grindr, for example, you know, it's like a shopping list. You got all these different. Well, no, it goes beyond that, right? You've got, like, you know, you've got all the different flavors, you know? You even got POS. You even got HIV positive guys that are like, yeah, I'm POSed up. You know, come at me. So, you know, there's a flavor for every different taste. So I feel like you're kind of pigeonholing men a bit when the expression of homosexuality, I think, is much broader than it ever has been. But you seem to be acting like gay men are still like, you know, the meme of them mincing about the place going, ooh, hello, missus. And I just don't think that's really true anymore.
I will say that the HIV thing is like weird as fuck, and that's like scary that people are like, I don't even know where to think of that. But yeah, there are masculine gay men. They do exist, right? They're the kind of like quote unquote self-hating gay men who hates, like, I'm not saying that they're all like that, but like they also have like this weird like thing against like men who are. It's like there's this weird like cultural divide. Like the alt-right has like cultural divides too. And I feel like the gay community has like this divide between like super feminine gay men and like very masculine gay men. And then, like in the trans community, you have people like me who are very like, you know, I'm a very feminine woman. I'm just the same as any other cis woman. And then you have the crazies on Twitter, you know? All these communities, we all have different divides. So, yeah.
Okay, I think...
Right. And I think there's a better side. I think that the based side is the side that conforms. Because I'm pro-conformity.
I've been listening to what you're saying, and I think that there's a deeper truth here that we need to get to.
Let's go.
I think that you believe effeminate gay men should just be trans.
Ooh, that's a very interesting one. So I'll tell you. My whole life, I've had people say to me, like, for whatever reason, right? Like, I was never told that being trans was an option, and that bothered me. I knew all about what being gay was, but like never once in my life did I think I was gay. Like a lot of trans people will be like, well, I knew I was gay for like a few years. I thought, and then I realized that I was trans. I never had that experience. Right? I transitioned so early. Like the thought, I knew what being gay was, but the thought never crossed my mind because I never like thought that. I just knew that I was a woman. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I feel like a lot of trans people. I'm gonna say it honestly. I think that there is some truth to it. I don't think that all of them are like that, but I do think that some of them are trans people in denial. And I've talked to some people who even admitted to me in some times, like people who are like non-conformity, people who are like effeminate men. They'll even say to me that they've like thought about being trans, or they decide they're not trans, or like it's a very complicated thing. Like they're not as clear cut as me, right? You know, if they actually were trans, I'd say that they weren't real trans. So it's like, I mean, I guess I don't want to be hypocritical there. But they struggle with some kind of feelings.
Does the idea of you, let's say tomorrow, you became a gay man, how would you feel about that?
I would kill myself. I would 41% myself. Because I could never. I just am a woman. Like that wouldn't even be possible. Like if that happened, I would just like transition again. Like because I'm just a woman. I couldn't exist that way. Like I literally, people don't understand this. And I don't know if I've told people this. I hid my face for 2 years because I thought it looked like a man, and I whispered for 2 years because I thought I sounded like a man. Like dysphoria fucking runs deep with me. Like, you know.
So okay, what you're explaining now, you know, you're talking about like your dysphoria or stuff like that. Like how do you feel that your feelings, your internal feelings about all this, how do you feel that impacts your view of like gay men?
I mean, probably have some bias there. You know, I have some like biased experiences against that community because those communities haven't exactly been super kind to me. You know, and that's come through. You know, I'm not immune to that shit.
It strikes me that you seem to have something in your head about either effeminate men or men that dress as women and drag, or femboys, you know, men that present very feminine. And it's interesting to me that maybe there's something within you that is looking at that, and it's, you know, you're cringing at that, but it's really you that's cringing.
How am I the one that's cringing, though? I'm the normal one. I'm the normal person here.
Okay. Can you give me a description of what normal is?
Normal is conforming to society and not challenging the gender roles and falling in line with how society currently views gender because it's based, and I like it. I like the way that society views gender. I love it. I think it's
Okay.
great. I think it's based. I wouldn't change a thing.
So to you, being normal is just conforming to whatever the current societal standard is for being a woman or being a man, say?
Yeah, absolutely. But I am better than the typical conservative on this because I am trans inclusive in my conformity.
But you
Like you can
exclude
be trans
effeminate gay
woman.
people.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not allowed to exist. I just I'm saying that I prefer
You don't like
conformity,
it.
and I
You
prefer
don't
that.
like it one bit, do you?
I feel like you're trying to push me against the wall. I just it like as a trans woman, like I'm not gonna lie that it bothers me. It
Mm.
makes me feel uncomfortable. I just wish that there was more normal
If
and I worry about the
okay,
direction.
if a gay man, a feminine gay man, minced past you right now and went, "Oh, hello, darling," how would you feel about that?
Um, I would like be nice on the surface, but like deep down, I would have like I would feel weird about it. I would just be like, I've met gay people in real life before, and they've been like perfectly nice to me or whatever. But like in the back of my head, I know to myself like, okay, this person's never going to be my friend. This person is like the embodiment of all my fears.
Well,
So
fears.
like I'm never gonna get along with this person. Yeah, I have trauma. Like I've had
Mm.
trauma from gay men in the past that I won't go into detail with, but I
No, of
mentioned it in my
course.
apology video.
Mm.
You
No,
know.
that's interesting because I think there's a lot of people that are wanting to crucify you, for being homophobic. I mean, I'm homophobic myself, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, I know you're not though. Come on, you're not homophobic.
No,
I don't
okay,
know
I'm
why
not.
you're
I'm
saying
just
that.
memeing. I'm just memeing, okay?
I know
But
you're memeing, but like I'm not dumb.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like you got some unpackaging to do, some thoughts with the gays.
Yeah,
That's the way I see it, anyway.
they're trying to send me to conversion therapy for my politics.
Well, it's not conversion therapy, even. Don't you think your life would be enriched by being able to welcome more people into your life, even if on the surface they make you a bit uncomfortable?
Why should we welcome all people though? That's so silly. Like everyone says it's good that we welcome all people. Okay, well,
Well, no,
should
no,
we
no.
welcome the rapists and pedophiles too?
Wait. Hang on a second. That's a bit of
Like,
a
you know what I'm
extrapolation.
saying?
Well, no, I
Like,
don't
you
because
should
that's
welcome all
wait.
people.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, don't if you want to have criteria on if someone has raped someone, that's completely legitimate. Don't have a problem with that. But what I'm saying is, not someone that's committed a crime or has got some sort of like serious mental health disorder, but someone who is just living their life as, say, a gay man, not prejudging them and cutting someone like that out of your life when they could be someone that could really bring some value to your life and enrich your life, and not cutting them off just because they make you feel a bit uncomfortable because they're a bit mincy.
I would be friends with a gay person if they were nice to me. It just never ends well. So I'm
But
not gonna lie though. I have my bias against them. When people have hurt me in that community, I'm gonna be biased towards them. And maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know how much of that is just because we're so inherently different. But I feel like I'm afraid, and I have a right to be afraid of based on how I felt in the past. I feel like I've overcome it a lot, right? If you talked to me 5 years ago, I'd be significantly worse than I am now. Um, so I'm proud of my progress in this regard. Like I'd
okay.
be friends with a gay person. I wouldn't have no issue.
So I think there might be some people that want to come in and ask you a few questions, one by one.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
that should be fun.
Add them in. Add them in. Let's have our surprise guests here.
So okay, yeah. I mean, okay. So I guess the problem I've got is would you? So say for example, I said to you, I had a bad experience a little while ago with some black people. I was a bit racist towards them, and now if I see a black person, they make me feel a bit uncomfortable, and I might be friends with them, but it probably isn't going to end well. Like, how would you respond or feel about that?
I would say that that's completely valid. I think here's the thing: people don't
Okay.
understand this. The definition of prejudice is like based on basically prejudice is based on not being based on reality. When you have something based on reality, it stops being prejudice. So like let's say you have a situation where let's imagine one white kid goes to a school where everyone else there is black, and all the kids bully him, and make fun of him because he's the only white kid there. That kid is going to grow up and hate black people, and he has every right to, because his personal experience caused him to be racist. Now, get me wrong, all right? This is like not applicable to like 99.999% of the population, but in that person's case, that person's gonna have a shitty life because people are gonna fucking call him racist all the time when he has the fucking reason to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's my experience with gay people, though. And it's taken me a long time to try to unlearn that shit.
Sure, I guess there's something fundamental, I think, in the way you look at things. If you are willing to exclude people on the basis of some characteristic, on the basis that you've been hurt in some way by them before, because if we have that logic and we're accepting of that, you end up justifying any sort of bigotry, including bigotry towards trans people. Someone can take the same perspective to you as a trans person. You know, does that not bother you?
Gonna fucking like me. Not every, like, if J.K. Rowling is not gonna like me, so fucking what, you know? Like, also, I like women.
Yeah, but it's
all
not
the
just
time
J.K. Rowling. This is very common. There's lots of people that have a very strong dislike of trans people, not for any good reason, but just because they make them feel uncomfortable in some way.
Well, you know what? I try to be nice to them, and that tries to help me. But like, I see women all the time saying they hate all men, and when they have some sympathy where they say, "Well, oh, this one man raped me, so all men are evil." Meanwhile, it's like I have like hundreds of gay men who harassed me my entire life, but apparently that's not enough to like justify the feelings that I have. But a woman could be raped one time, and she can hate all men, and that's totally fine to these people online. Like, I feel like there's like an inconsistency.
I disagree, but
wait.
But I disagree with that. I appreciate that trauma can do bad things, but you can't. I don't think it's healthy to live your life hating a group of people based just on some identity factor because you got hurt by that person in the past. Well, you don't seem to agree. You seem to be accepting of it.
I don't think it's healthy, but it's like I understand it. Like when it comes to men, though, I think the difference is like men are like 50% of the population. So like having like an opinion on that many people is like a lot stupider because you've probably met so many fucking men your entire life that if you genuinely think they're all evil, then that's really weird. Whereas like with like gay people and stuff or like trans people, like or like people of different races, if you come from a background that's predominantly white.
That doesn't make sense because then you're saying because the problem isn't the amount of men there are. The problem is you're assigning characteristics to someone on the basis that they're a man and making a prejudgment on the basis of their gender, right? One man and another man could be completely different. One black person, another black person could be completely different. One gay person, another gay person. Trans person could be completely different. It's the fact that you're attributing characteristics and traits based on one thing or like something like that. Not that there's lots of them. Anyway, let's bring people in. Come on, I've got Wick. Okay. Do you know who Wick is?
Yeah, I know who Wick is. We've talked before. Yeah, I've talked to Wick. Hi, Wick. Can you hear me?
Oh, hello. Sorry, I had to mute the stream so I didn't get that echo. Hi, Rose. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you? Long time. Well, not long time, but it's been a while since I've talked to you. So this is going to be interesting. What have you thought about my performance today?
Your performance today. Well, this is kind of what I want to talk to you about. Because for me, at least, it's hard to because you do admit that you are kind of playing a character, right? This is a performance to a degree. You are yucking it up for views. You're yucking it up for clout and attention, which I don't think there's anything inherently wrong about that. But my problem comes is it's very hard for me to find just like when you're actually being genuine. Does that make sense?
Sure. Oh, yeah, so it's like it's hard to distinguish like what's trolling and what's not.
That and also just how much you actually believe these takes you're making. Like I can believe that you were
even I don't know.
Well, see, I think this is a problem though. Not just for me and for the audience, but for you as yourself. I understand being unsure and uncertain and I can respect that, right? But I think we have to be honest about that as well. We have to I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Like I get that what you're trying to do is working in the sense that you're getting attention, you're getting on streams, but I worry that you are doing it at the expense of your mental health. To be quite frank.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong. This is going to come as a shocker to nobody. I've had mental health issues in the past. Like I have OCD, you know, I suffer with that. People always joke about that mental illness, not really realizing how serious that is. Like I fear that I'm gonna have every fucking medical condition because of my OCD. Like it's hypochondria. Like, you know, I've severe like history of like anxiety and like depression and shit. It's like when I do things like this, it distracts me from that, you know? So it's like, I mean, people can view it as like silly, like little meme streams, but it's like it's another moment. I don't have to think about like the depressing shit. Like, I mean, if we're talking about mental health, yeah, I don't like talking about this
Yeah,
kind of stuff because it's kind of like a down mood.
I get it. I get it. You want to distract yourself, but look, there are much healthier ways to do so. And while I think that, like, look, I wouldn't want to see you disappear from this space, right? Like, I think that if you were to move away from the trolling and move to more genuine kind of your takes, like if you actually believe that the things you were saying, like drag is doing a harm to the trans movement, right? Like I think you hurt your case if you actually believe that. I think you hurt your case when you
Yeah.
make these extreme statements, because again, people will just assume that you're not being genuine, that you're just clout farming. And I think that if you really, really do believe in what you're saying, you should tone down the extremism, because then people will take you more seriously. We'd have an honest discussion about it, right?
Okay, can I just say this? Like we've talked before. I just want to make it clear. Every time I've talked on your stream, for whatever reason, the environment I get from your stream makes me be more genuine. Like when I'm on your stream, I'm being myself. I'm not the hyperbolic kind of person I am on
That
Twitter.
yes,
And
that's
you notice
why
that too,
that's one of
right?
the reasons I'm on here today, because I think that, like, my experiences with you on my stream and in private have been much different
Oh,
from what I've seen
exactly,
today,
exactly.
much different from what I've seen on Twitter, and I'm just trying to understand why there's a discrepancy,
Yeah.
and kind of fix it, because I think that you're going to be overall happier, right, in the long term, if you are more genuine. That's
I'll
just
tell,
my take here.
I'll tell you. I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, and I don't want to be rude about it. So, like, when it comes to like being on like these big streamers, like a lot of the time, like I'm like desperate for like attention and people to like be accepted and cared for. But like when I'm in a situation where I'm on a panel with like 8 other people, and there's like maybe like I don't know like 50 people watching it, like I understand in that situation, like I'm not going to gain a lot from myself in the situation. Like I'm not going to gain subscribers. I don't really have a lot of personal benefit. So when
I
I'm
mean,
in that
that's true.
situation,
Well,
I'm
you
there
got
because I
your
genuinely want
song.
to be there.
You got your song. The Simp song. That's got so many views. It's 50 viewers is a flash in the pan, isn't it?
I mean, I guess so. It's funny though because I feel like if I ever tried to like live stream, I wouldn't get that many, which is probably why I don't live stream because it's like I don't even know how to set that up, and I feel like I haven't like built enough of an audience myself. Like I think people know about me, but they like don't know like about it. I'm in a weird spot, and I have to like figure out how to like get people to actually care about me instead of like just like my controversy.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Can I
Yeah,
ask
of
you a
course.
question then? Do you think that do you think you have people in your life that care for you, or no?
I think that people do. They just don't understand me. Like the people in my life, like they care about me, but they don't like fully get me. They think they do, but they don't. I've never
Do you
really
think
met
that
people
this
who
is
like
your way
full.
of trying to show them and show the world kind of who you really are? Is that part of it, or am I off base here?
I mean, it's a little like depressing when
The
you think
lesbian in
about it. It's
question
like,
shall
is
have
this how
this.
you want people to view you? Is this what you want your legacy to be? I mean, when you say shit like that, obviously it's like you have to think about that. Am I going to be proud of this in like 20 years? I mean, the truth answer is probably not. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
it's
no,
shitty. Like,
I think you do know, Rose. I think you do know. I think you know that you aren't going to be proud of it, and you hope that you're going to be able to move on and get past
exactly, yeah.
this, and people will kind
That's
of
the
see
goal.
you more as genuine. That's what I
Yeah.
think, but
No,
I could be
100%.
wrong.
It's a transitional phase. I want to move beyond this.
So can I ask then? Like, I think you are getting on streams now. You're on the infamous ChudLogic stream right now, which is
Indeed.
a great, with like 470 people watching or something like that. Look, at this point, maybe it's time to transition to being genuine, like right now, like right right the fuck now, because I think that if you pivot now, right, before it gets too late, before you just become an LOL cow, right, like a lol cow, as they say, you're going to be much happier. So that's all I'm here to say is like, look, Rose, you know, when we've talked in private, when you've been on my stream, I don't agree with many of your views, but I think you have a point of view worth hearing. But when I see your takes on Twitter and when I see you come on to these other places and just perform, I think it does you a disservice. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No, wait. I wanted to say, like, I agree
Oh,
with you. I think I've
okay.
gotten to a point where I've spoken to all the big streamers I wanted to speak to. I don't really have anything to gain from this, and at this point, I really got only everything to lose because I think when I make controversial tweets, I might get attention in the moment, but like I'm losing like connections. People aren't like
Yep.
aren't liking me because of stuff at that point.
So
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 maybe now
before I
is
go,
the time to do
yeah.
that. Maybe now's the time to
Yeah,
switch.
before I go though, I will say that it's not maybe it is, and I would just ask, will you commit right here, right now to doing that?
Okay, I can, yeah. I can make
Okay,
that I can
excellent. I'll
make
hold you
that a
to it.
thing.
Anyway, thank you, Chud. I'll see you
Pleasure.
Friday. Bye bye.
Yes, see you then. Bye bye. Okay, Rose.
Hey.
I'm trying to get more people in. Listen, if you want to ask a question or talk or whatever, hop in the green room. We'll pull you in. I've got a question from chat though that I want to put to you. I've got a couple of questions. First one: what are your thoughts on lesbians?
Yeah, that's a very interesting. So, I haven't. I used to like not think about lesbians all that much, but now I like. I agree that I think bigotry goes both ways. So, I feel just as bad about lesbians as I do with gay men because, like, with lesbian like butch women who just basically dress up as men like offends me.
Mm.
So I don't really like that. Um, and also like a lot of lesbians are turfs and like a lot of like the transphobic shit. Like for I'm not a feminist. I'm very anti-feminist, right? And like the most feminist people in the world are the people who like hate gender norms or want to like erase trans people like me. And a lot of them are like butch lesbians and stuff. So I mean, I'm not saying that everyone is like that, but yeah, I've had a lot more negative experiences more recently when it comes to like lesbians and turfs and stuff.
Okay.
You know, I feel like a lot of lesbians are turfs.
Well, here's I guess an all round question because it applies to gay people, effeminate gay people, lesbians, a butch, whatever. So this is how you feel about it. What do you think we as a society ought to do about these effeminate gays and the butch lesbians?
I'm not. I don't think it should be like outlawed or anything. I just think that people should be encouraged to be normal. I think people have the right to exist. I just would prefer that people like
So
like they have the right.
it sounds like you've got a very rigid idea of what gender should be, and you think we should encourage people to fit that. What's in
We
your head
should.
with that essentially. And how do
Yeah,
we
we
do
should.
that? How do
But
we encourage that? Discount for dresses for
that
women, maybe.
just like very hold these societal norms that we currently have in society. Oh wait, oh Nicholas Diorio's here. All of these like norms that we have in society, like uphold the gender norms we have. You know what I'm saying? Like we've done this for thousands of years at this point. Like conservatives know how to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like what they're doing is fine. They just heavily encourage heteronormity.
Okay. And there was I think another question from chat while I'm waiting for
By the
more
way,
people to
someone
get in
should
here.
join. Come on. More
Come
people
on.
join, please. I'm a very interesting person to talk to. This is going to be your one chance. Don't miss it, guys. All you have to do is join the green room in the ChudLogic Discord server. Don't miss
O-
your opportunity or you'll regret it.
Okay, so this question here. So what are your thoughts on bio queens and drag kings?
What the fuck are bio queens?
I think that's when women dress up in drag in a very kind of like extenuated feminist way.
I'm very against drag kings too. They're also cringy and I hate it. I mean, I feel the same way about drag kings as drag queens. I just think that they're less common, which is why people don't talk about them as much. But like I feel like there's a problem in society where people like aren't offended enough by like women dressing as men and it's like more normalized. It's like when I see a woman wearing like a big business suit, like that bothers me. So I feel like more people should be bothered by that. It's like, feminine clothes exist, male clothes exist.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
This is straight to the point. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
about black people?
Oh, that's a really interesting one. I think that I wouldn't call myself well. Actually, I think everyone is racist. That's what critical race theory class taught me. So I think I'm just as racist as everyone else. I don't think I'm especially racist compared to other people. I would say that like a lot of the differences that we see are due to like systemic oppression. Like they're real and they exist, but they're not like biological or anything. I think I tweeted something like kind of like I've been talking about like how a lot of like the reason why. So basically, if you look at the equator, the countries nearest to the equator, they're warmer, and people in warmer climates adapt based on their skin color. So the only difference between white people and black people is that their skin color evolved to react to different climates. And it just so happens that the climates that are further away from the equator are actually better suited for white skin. So people in those environments evolved to have white skin, which those environments also happen to be the better, areas for life to form on and the better areas for like, better farming conditions. So that's why white people have become so successful. I think there is a reason for it, but there's no difference in intelligence or anything. And that's why when you see like with climate change, it's becoming increasingly like beneficial to have like darker skin now. You see like if white people tried to like develop the areas by the equator, they fail it just like everyone else does because those areas aren't, they're not as good. But like, people with darker skin coming to like the like places further from the equator, they're just as successful and they're just as like, because there's no biological difference between us. They're just as successful as like anyone else is. So there's no biological difference between the races. It's mostly like a societal and cultural difference.
Okay. Right. I've got someone else waiting. Canadian caller. Hello, Canadian caller.
Hello.
Howdy. Okay, so just to bookend this topic conversation you're having with.
Oh, you're a bit quiet, by the way. You're a bit quiet.
Okay, just to bookend the conversation you were having with Chud with a little bit of a joke. Do you have any black friends?
I kind of like. I don't have like any that I'm like super close with. I used to have like friends that were like black that I was really close with. I have some. Actually, that's not true. I have a few that I talk to sometimes. But I'm not like. I would say a little bit. Like I have some friends that are like kind of black, partially black, and I have some that are like black that are like maybe not my closest friends, but I talk to them a lot, and I'm like on good terms with them.
Oh, okay. That's great. So as your opinion on Black Minstrelsy goes, I would highly suggest you talk to someone you know in real life and give them your perspective and see how they react. But moving on, what I'm really interested in is your perception of what normal is. I want to make sure I understood your position correctly. You think being a trans woman is normal, but being an effeminate gay man is not, correct?
Yeah, I see what you're trying to do there. I think being a woman is normal, and I see myself as just a woman. So
you don't see yourself as trans? I want to be.
See, this is the thing that bothers me. These hyper woke people come to me and be like, "You as a trans woman, you cannot be normal." And it's like, this is the person who's supposed to be defending my rights. This is the person who's supposed to be on my side, telling me you'll never be normal. You have to sit with us in the weird crowd, y'all. You're the weird kid in school. Don't ever try to be the popular kid.
Sister,
no, you're always determined biologically to be.
Shadow. What I was gonna say next, if you could just chill for a second, was, are you not then concerned with any arguments you make about effeminate gay people being used on you in the future? Self-preservation is what I would appeal to. I wouldn't brown nose you like that. Come on.
Okay. So then what do you want to say?
Well, that was it. It's like, okay, think this through, right? Do you not think any argument you could make to distinguish femme gay people as not normal could then be turned around and not used towards trans people? Like, can you come up with that argument?
Well, I think that being gay and being trans are inherently different. I think the fact that you're trying to see that they're similar insults me.
No, that's listen to what I'm saying. The arguments being used against gay men, all the arguments that I've heard and all the ones I know, are applicable in both scenarios. So my concern to you and the appeal I'm making is towards self-preservation. So I'll repeat myself. I can't think of an argument against gay feminine men that can't also be to call them not normal, that also can't be used on trans people. So if you're going to say that there's a distinction, it's fine. It's like, how do you tease that out in a way that also doesn't catch you in the blowback?
Yeah, because in my opinion, me just being a normal cisgender woman is not like, I'm not going to like being openly gay in public and being openly flamboyant, right? Like I'm just a woman. I'm just being myself. Like I'm not challenging norms. They're
Hold
challenging
on.
gender
You're
norms.
a
They're
cisgender
challenging.
woman. You said that, right?
You think I'm faking being trans?
No, you said you're a cisgender woman. Did I hear that correctly?
I'm technically trans, but I view myself as a cis woman. Like, in pretty much all aspects, I'm essentially a cis woman. Like, I'm technically trans. Like, I'm not trans, I'm Rose, you know? Like, you know what I mean?
No, I don't. These are binary categorizations, right? It's either you're cis or trans. Which is it?
I mean, like I said, like, I'm technically, like, the goal is to become cis passing. The goal is to conform in society. So it's like, while I'm technically trans, like,
hold on. Okay,
the goal is to just be a cis woman at the end.
What does being cis mean to you then? Because I think we're using different words here.
Yeah, I know what technically cis means. It means identifying with the sex that you were born as or whatever, right? But the goal is that you eventually become so indistinguishable from a cis woman that you essentially just become a cis woman.
Oh, okay, cool. So we're just having a little disagreement on language here. If you want to be cis passing, that's cool. Go off, queen. I hope that happens for you. Honestly, someone.
You think I'm not now?
No, I was about to say, Jesus, calm down, girl. I was about to say, if no one told me you're trans, I wouldn't know. So I think you're doing a swell job. Good for you.
Thank you so
But
much. It means a
but
lot
you're
to me.
not. But like definitionally, right? Like you are aware, you are cis passing, but you are not cis, correct? Like I just want to make sure we're agreeing on reality here.
I don't know how we're disagreeing on reality. I just, like, yeah. I guess, like I said, that I was technically trans, but in all aspects that are important, I'm essentially basically a cis woman.
Okay. So based on that technicality, could someone not make the same anti-normal arguments towards you as they make towards an effeminate gay man? Come on now, this is simple.
How though? Like, that, you'd have to say they make those same arguments against, like, cis women then, if you're gonna make those arguments against me. And also, like, back in the early, sorry.
You're forcing me to be transphobic to like explain this to you, so I'll just bite the bullet and go ahead. Because you were not born a woman, you are not a cis woman. That is not normal, quote unquote, to the average conservative thinker. So even as though you pass and you look the part, and frankly, like sociologically, which is where gender like matters, for all intents and purposes, you are a woman. But in this very niche technicality, you aren't, and that is where like people are going to attack you. Is that in this one particular way? You don't fit the normal model. So I'm appealing to your sense of self-preservation to not make those kinds of arguments because they could hurt you in the long run. That's it. That's my entire take.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're admitting that I'm basically a cis woman in all the ways that matter, then it's like, how is like the arguments of homophobia going to apply to me if I'm essentially just a cis woman with the technicality that I'm not?
Because conservatives are dishonest fucks, and the one technicality that's different that doesn't matter for most people matters to these people, and this has been the playbook that the mainstream conservative party has used for decades. This is what people say on the news all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I see like a trans woman like Kim Petras. She's like so cis. Like, to call her a trans woman, like, she is a trans woman, but she's like basically like a cis woman. Like, I mean, you see people who pass like because they transition young, like me. I mean, you know, that's the same. Like, for instance, I'm white as fuck, right? Like, everyone who looks at me knows that I'm basically just white, but I'm 50% Cuban. Does that mean I'm technically Latina? I'm technically Hispanic, but like calling myself that feels weird because I've never had to suffer for it in my single life, right? Like, I come from a rich family. Like, just because my grandparents immigrated from Cuba, like, I've never had to suffer for that.
But wait, I don't think suffering is integral to your experience, as a LGBT or race or anything. Like, you don't have to have suffered to be something. You can just be that thing and just not have suffered because you're lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess I did get lucky because, like, my grandparents, like, they did grow up, like, in poverty, but, like, my parents managed to, do pretty well for themselves.
Was that in
so,
Cuba?
I mean, like, well, so I think I was forget if it was my grandmother or grandfather. I think my grandmother owned, like, a business in Cuba, and, like, the government, when they took power, like, they kind of, like, took that away. And so that's why she left the country, because it was, like...
What sort of business was she in?
I don't remember. I think she owned like a hair salon or something. I could be wrong about that.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
I don't remember. I have to ask my parents, and they're kind of in Europe right now, so I can't really ask them.
No worries.
Final memes.
This is gonna sound fake as fuck, but my grandfather actually was childhood friends with Fidel Castro. Like, that's gonna sound fake, and that's gonna sound like I'm making it up, but I swear to fucking God, I'm not. Like like Fidel Castro told my grandfather that he was going to murder him if he ever came back to Cuba. And I know that sounds fake as fuck, and I know coming from me specifically that sounds fake as fuck, but I heard this from my parents. Like, and that's part of the reason I don't like communism. Like, it's kind of personal.
Okay.
So,
final memes. If would you be in favor of the government force feminizing all femme gay men? Yes or no?
like forcing what all gay men? Force feminizing?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Hunter Avallone. You want to join the call?
Focus on the question. I'm dealing with that. You focus on the question.
I don't think that like all gay men should ever be forced to act a certain way. I think you can like encourage them to act a certain way, but no one should ever be forced to. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a step too far for me personally. Yeah, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't say you should be forcing someone to do that.
Okay, I'm just going over the memes if you have heard. Okay, so last one. So you're trans. Do you think trans people who don't undergo medical treatments are not valid trans people?
Yeah, so I think that you do need dysphoria to be trans, and if you're not going to undergo them, despite having every reason to, it makes me ask a lot of questions. I wouldn't go necessarily as far, like if they're everything else about them is like trans and stuff, I wouldn't go that far, but like it would make me like think that like, okay, if you're not willing, if you have all like the ability to do so, and you're not going to, that's silly to me. Like
all the ability, right? So if a trans person is poor and they can afford it, you wouldn't make the same argument.
Oh, 100%. You know, if somebody literally like can't afford hormones or they don't have supportive parents or they're not able to, like I'm sympathetic to that. What's important is that somebody wants me to, like somebody's trying to make the effort to do so.
All right. So before you make that characterization about people, do you like ask for their T4s, their family, like background? Do you make those necessary like checks to see if they're in the right tax bracket to receive that criticism, or do you just make the criticism out of pocket?
I mean, I typically tend to like if people say like on Twitter, like I want to take hormones, but I can't because of X, Y, and Z. Like I'm sympathetic to that, you know. Like I like that's the thing. Like if someone on Twitter is going to be like, well, actually, I want to take hormones, but I can't. That's all I have to say. I want to, but for this reason, I can't. Right? I think is it so horrible to at least have this like one bare minimum standard? Like I think gatekeeping is perfectly fine. It's perfectly like I think there's actually a value to have gatekeeping.
No, I fundamentally disagree. Leftism has always been a big tent where we were getting like disparate groups to try to like work together and agree with each other. So if you're like part of a marginalized group demonizing your own, I don't think that's really helpful in the long run. I mean, depends what your aims are. Like you just want to be famous, right? Like you don't care about politics, you don't care about any of this. You just want to be famous. Right?
I do want to be famous, but like to say that I don't care is silly because as a trans woman, obviously I do care about like the stuff that impacts me. So, like to say that I don't care is kind of silly. Like obviously I do want to be famous. Like I feel like everyone who like streams wants at least some form of notoriety, maybe not as much as me. But like I also care a lot about being trans, and the stuff that I see in the trans community genuinely bothers me. So like there is like actually like stuff that I want to change. You know what I'm saying? Like I think both can be true. You know?
Okay, listen, we need to wrap up. There's a few people waiting.
Yeah. Okay, so wrapping up, I'm just gonna go back to the first thing I said. When you're saying shit online, I would very much like suggest that you look towards self-preservation and how the arguments can be that you're using can be used against you in the future. That's my biggest point with you. Best of luck with your music career. You have a good year.
Yeah, you know about my music. Thank you. Hey, that's sweet. That's sweet.
Hello?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Canadian caller. Appreciate you, okay?
Get her, Hunter. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hunter. Hello there.
What's up, ChudLogic? I don't even know if we've ever actually spoken.
No, this is the first time, mate.
Wow.
Listen, I'm a bit starstruck right now. I used to watch you when you were basically a fascist. I mean, a right-winger, you know, so...
The good old days.
The good old days, yeah. Anyway, how's it going? You good?
Going good, yeah. I'm live on my end over here. And next thing I know, I saw that you were talking with Rose Mulet, so I wanted to watch for a few minutes, and then I didn't realize I actually had an opportunity to talk too. So that's cool. Thanks for bringing me in.
No worries. Did you have like a disagreement with Rose, perhaps, or?
Well, Rose, I wanted to ask you a question. Were you just trolling the entire time with your fucking condom thing?
No, I genuinely like believe that. Like, I think the conversation I had with you, I think I mentioned in the stream, I think the conversation I had with you was valuable because I had some other debates on the same topic afterwards. And like, I think coming to the conclusion I did after we talked, like, Medley to be a lot more reasonable in those debates. So, I mean, like, you know, I think I do believe like the tweet that I made. I'm not trolling about the tweet that I made. I didn't think it would get the attention that it did. But I was being serious when I said that. Like, the only thing I don't agree with, I think I was being hyperbolic on, was like the life in prison thing. But I agree with the sentiment. Other than that, I think saying life in prison was very stupid.
So because you posted a TikTok where you said you successfully trolled the internet.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow, you saw that. So I just posted that TikTok. I wasn't really trolling. Like, you know how you try to have your cake and eat it too. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that. Like, so I like there's some element. I just thought it was funny that like this guy who like was like the guy who was like he did some position I've never heard of for Trump, and I basically replied to him like, "How do you have 1 million followers and no one knows who you are?" I just thought that was like super funny. So
I mean, it's
that's
just
why.
you must understand the way that makes you seem extremely weaselly. Like, do you remember the first time we talked? I accused you of being super weaselly and bad faith, and like now you are like what you just said, trying to have your cake and eat it too. Why don't you just commit to a position and stick with it? Why do you have to be like, well, I was half trolling. No, I was half kidding. No, I was ha ha ha. Like, why are you doing that? It makes it sound like you're scared to actually take a position. So you're kind of making both claims so that you can always have a defense, basically.
Yeah, so I feel like there's actually validity to testing opinions out to see how they work. So like if I post something on Twitter, like I don't think that much about it. I just kind of post it and see how people react, and based on how people react, like I give it more thought. Like,
So that's your first.
actually, the entire day you
That's your
talked
first
to me,
problem.
yeah. So I'll tell you, Hunter. The day I talked to you, the rest of that day, I was like replying and looking at responses to me the whole day. So basically, I mean, that whole day was people giving me shit over that tweet. Right, so
Yeah,
I
but then
thought a
that's
lot
why it
about
sounded
that
like
day.
you backtracked into saying, "Oh, well, I was just trolling." So
Well,
that's all. I
it
just
wasn't
wanted to
just
ask you
trolling.
that because
Yeah, I
I
was being a bit
personally give it.
dishonest.
What? Sorry.
Rose, you took Hunter for a ride. Let's be honest here. You know, you fucking, you know, gave him the runaround with your bullshit tweet, didn't you? And argument. Bit unfair, really.
I mean, I had a like whole hour and a half debate. Like, I wasn't trolling. Like, I don't know if you watch like the video, it's very clear that I wasn't trolling in there.
I mean,
did.
you're right. It seemed like you were extremely sincere, but
Yeah,
then
'cause I
all of a
was.
sudden you were like, "I successfully trolled the internet." So
Well, I was
it
talking
just
about like other things. Like, I was just like at that point, once like the tweet was completely serious, but like once the tweet got viral, then I started having fun and like just like kind of like going in on it, like seeing how the most I could make out of it. And that was like mostly just like kind of responding in like funny ways. And honestly, it was kind of like stupid and kind of immature, right? Like, I don't think it's ever as simple as like, oh, you're completely serious. Oh, you're completely trolling. Like, I think generally I'm probably more serious, but like I also have a little bit of fun. Like,
sure. No,
you
I
know,
understand that. So I mean, how did your opinion change after we talked? Because I did see after we talked, you tweeted it's looked like an apology.
I did actually, yeah. So what happened with that is I don't want to talk too personally. I had a friend of mine basically said, "Hey, you know, I know we're friends and stuff, but like this tweet, I saw your tweet. It really hurt me. Please delete this tweet." And so basically, the friend of mine basically said, like, "I really want you to delete this tweet." And then we had to talk about it and why it bothered me. And so I felt bad about it, you know. So that was the reason I deleted the tweet because my friend told me to. So then that happened.
Okay.
That was the reason I deleted it, and I basically they said I should apologize for it, so I apologized for it.
You're weak,
Okay,
aren't
yeah.
you? You're weak, Rose.
You backtracked. No, I mean, obviously it's better to delete the tweet and apologize for it than keep it up because, you know, it was really fucking stupid of a tweet. But other
was
people
really
are saying, what?
I mean, looking back at it was pretty stupid. Like, I think there's some truth to what I'm saying. I don't fully understand the reaction to it being as extreme as it was because I don't think it was that extreme of a tweet. But I was pretty hyperbolic in it. But anyway, sorry.
Okay, wait, you can't say it was not that extreme of a tweet and then also say it was really hyperbolic because hyperbole literally means that you are engaging in some form of extreme, heavy duty kind of opinion. And when you say that people who defend themselves from rape should be locked up for life in prison, that's probably what got people really, really upset. And now I know you walked that back and I'm glad you did. And I also want to thank you for the content because it was great. But at the same time, it does seem just a little bit like you're kind of all over the place, I guess. People are also mentioning that you have a rape fetish. Could that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I've noticed that. So Keffels' editor, apparently, so long story short, I used to edit for The Right Opinion, and Keffels' editor also used to edit for The Right Opinion. And I think back in 2020, I didn't think this was ever online, because it's not online, it hasn't been online for years. So when I was working at The Right Opinion, she found this tweet of mine, and I guess she must have been the one who, like, downloaded it to her computer and found it. So, pure sheer coincidence, she had this clip of me from, like, 2 years ago, saying this, like, talking about my rape fetish on Twitter, because that was one of the reasons, like, I got fired from editing for The Right Opinion, and I have a whole like stuff about that. That was a whole thing. So she just happened to have this clip and then tweeted this out. Kevels retweeted it, and people were like kind of making fun of me for like having like a rape fetish and stuff. So yeah,
Well,
I mean that could inform some of it.
You know, I'm not kink shaming or anything, but it does come across again as a little bit strange when, and I know that I made those tweets at first and I took them down after I was tweeting about you, but I mean, people were pulling up your old tweets also where you were like, as long as they don't have an STD, I would really like to be raped or something. Like shit like that's kind of yikes.
Yeah, that was pretty yikesy. I mean, my thought process was, well, actually, the only thing wrong about it was like actually I was stupid. I think I was like 17 when I posted that. Like, obviously, that tweet comes from like immaturity. Like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is because there are other people waiting and I'm not gonna take all your time. The other thing I would suggest is like instead of making a tweet after only like half-ass thinking about it and then debating about it and seeing how people react, I think it would probably be a better idea to think it through. And then once you think that it's a good take and you feel that you can reasonably justify it, then post it. That's why a lot of the times when I debate, I'm able to stick to what I said and I don't have to backtrack because I've already thought through what I'm going to post before I do it.
Yeah,
So it
I'll
might be a
tell
good
you.
idea to consider that.
When I'm on like debates and panels and stuff, I typically like that's where you really have like a lot of analysis. Like if you're going to talk about something for like an hour, you have to really think about what you're saying. But like when I'm on Twitter, I feel like Twitter's the platform that encourages like impulsive ideas where you don't really think it through. Like, I mean, maybe I'm alone in that aspect, but I don't think I'm alone in that aspect. Like a lot of people like me have like this toxic use of Twitter where we just kind of say what we're thinking in the moment, not really give it much thought, not really giving it like a critical lens, and so like, oh, I'll see how people respond to it. I'll think about this later, you know. That's definitely come to bite me a lot of times.
Yeah,
100%.
I think that, okay. I mean, I think that that's part of. I think that might be why you've been having such difficulty online is because it does come across extremely weaselly when you like make a tweet and you're like, oh, I made the tweet, and so then I could think about what I said, and then I could like it's like, bruh, it kind of sounds like you're not really thinking through anything. So then when you get backlash, you're able to just walk it back, and then if it gets attention or positive attention, you can be like, yeah, that's really what I thought. That's my opinion. I don't know. It just sounds like it would help you to think a little bit more before you tweet it, because then it would kind of get rid of this idea of you being so weaselly, because you really seem quite weaselly.
Yeah, I have to. I definitely do have to think through like my opinions. You know, I just like it's like a trial run. Like I want to see how people feel. Like if I have an opinion, I don't express it. I'd rather just express those opinions. I'd rather like be an open book in that regard. You know, maybe that's not super great. But that's just how I run my
it's
Twitter.
not really good. That's not great at all. But
Yeah,
I mean, you're
tells me
social
that.
media, so you can do whatever the fuck you want. But just I'm, and honestly, I'm not a. I see people in ChudLogic's chat being like, "Wow, Hunter's so fucking arrogant." I'm not saying I'm perfect. Believe me, I've made that mistake multiple times of tweeting and then realizing that what I said was probably not the best thing, and then I have to walk it back or delete the tweet. But I mean, if you're doing this pretty much every other day, then it starts to make it really challenging to take you seriously.
Well, I guess so. I mean, maybe it's not super clear like what's serious and what's not based on like what I tweet. I don't know. It's something I need to work on. I can buy that.
Okay. Well,
people are calling you base, by the way, in the
cool.
chat.
Wow. Well, now my self-esteem went up, so I'm very happy for that. Well, either way, I appreciate the short conversation. I'm glad to hear that you weren't completely trolling during our conversation, especially because
No, I wasn't.
it annoys me when somebody quote unquote gives me content and then I find out later that they were like wasting my time and basically trolling the entire time. So,
Hunter.
yeah.
No, if I promise you, okay, I got a lot of shit because I wasn't trolling. Like I could have easily, like if I wanted to like walk it back, I could have like done that. I mean, you know, because I talked to you. Like I was really genuine there. Like and honestly, it's probably a bad thing that I was genuine there because you know it made me look pretty shitty. But yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
well, thanks for this short chat, and
how did you find
Hunter.
this? Yeah, thanks for
What's
letting
that?
me
How did
know.
I find the stream?
Yeah, how did you find the stream? Yeah, how did you know?
I mean, I follow ChudLogic, or at
Oh,
least it
okay,
popped up in
that's
my recommended or something. I went on my Twitch because I was going live, and then I saw that ChudLogic was live talking with Rose Mulet. So I was like, oh shit, I wonder what's
Mulet. It's
happening
Mulet.
today.
No, yours
Yeah.
mullet. It's mullet. Okay. Right.
It is
Thank-
mullet?
Not mullet. It's Mulet.
Mulet. Okay, yeah, it's French. All right, got it.
Nicholas, you think I'm the biggest troll? Then come in here and talk to me.
Shut up, Rose. I'm managing that. Hunter, thanks for coming by, mate. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you, Chud. Good talking to you. See ya.
You too. Catch you later. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.
Right. We got Josie Rose. Hello. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
We
How
got
are you?
another Rose in here.
Yes.
Right. How do I sound? I want to make sure I'm using the right audio input. Does that sound good?
You sound
'Cause
crystal clear.
Great.
You probably have
perfect.
better audio than me.
Well, thank you.
Constantly get shit for that.
No problems. I tell you, getting a good mic is a good investment if you're going to be a content creator. So yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm actually taking a break from work right now because
Ooh.
I just sent out an email, so I got a little bit of a time here to chat. And
Nice.
yeah, so I'm sure you probably have heard of me. Have you heard of me? Rose?
Actually, I think I briefly like your name sounds familiar to me, but I can't think of why.
Okay,
I think you should
sure.
introduce yourself so that everyone knows who you are.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Josie Rose C. I have a Twitch stream that I do for a hobby, but in real life, I am a director for a national trans survey for a national nonprofit here in the United States. And I am a trans woman. I guess with you, Rose, I guess what it would be is I am a gender dysphoric trans woman that's on hormones and pursuing all the medical transition stuff because of my dysphoria. So I guess in a sense, we are kind of the same when it comes to how we present and how we see ourselves in the world, although I see myself as trans, not cis. So I'm going to say that now. I am definitely trans and proud to be trans. So that's me.
Yeah, I could never be proud to be trans. My end goal is being cis, but yeah. That's
yeah,
where we differ.
I mean, yeah, sure. But I really wanted to talk about a few things about how the language that you are using in particular, especially in dealing with people who are gay and cis, and how you see drag and things like that. So I wanted to kind of see and have a conversation about that. So you would agree that there is an LGB movement, right? That want to eliminate the T from the queer community, right?
Oh, definitely. The LGB alliance is like the worst, and also a lot of terms are
Right.
like lesbians and gay men. They're like a lot of
Sure.
most transphobic people I've met are like gay and lesbian people. 100%.
So my question to you, if you have the rhetoric that feminine gay men and butch lesbians should either just transition and they make you uncomfortable, I fear that your argument is going to be weaponized against the entirety of the trans movement because you are also spreading very harmful points of view toward the gay community, which legitimizes why queer people or certain LGB folks want us removed from the movement because the idea of feminizing gay men has been used in the world to actually do. I know in Middle Eastern countries, if you're gay, they force feminize you to be able to live that way, and it's extremely abusive and barbaric and dehumanizing. So having those type of views of thinking, oh, these gay people just need to be trans already, has been done in the world and is a complete human rights violation. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm not for forced feminizing people. Although I will say one of the first instances I heard about being trans was like someone telling me that like in whatever like Middle Eastern country they make people like go through the sex reassignment surgery. That was the first time I heard about the surgery, and I remember thinking, oh, why can't that be me? So I mean, like that was like before I was like 12. I didn't know anything about anything. But like I agree that it's barbaric, and like I'm against forced transitioning. Like I'm against forced like making like gender nonconforming. Like I think people should be able to do whatever they want. I just think we should highly incentivize normativity. I think being trans falls into that.
But normativity has been used as a weapon against people who don't conform as cis heteronormative, right? Cis is a key word as well. And the idea of normal, breeds the opposite, which is degeneracy. And degeneracy has been used to justify genocides across the world.
Okay, well,
So
obviously, I don't like. Duh, I
so
don't. I'm not.
to I know, but to believe that there is a quote unquote normal to assimilate in society means that there are people who are not part of society who are degenerates and don't need the respect of life because they're just not conforming to society. And normalcy theory has been has been used as a justification for genocides of people who don't conform into the way that society sees. You are aware of that history, correct?
I guess like that idea that like some people, I guess you're right, but like obviously there's a difference between that and what I'm saying. Like I think that's just disgusting. Like
What's the opposite of normal then? If someone is not normal, then what are they?
I mean I use the word degenerate, you know, like I call people degenerate sometimes because I think that
So
there's some
so
people that are, but like I'm against, like that doesn't mean I'm like fucking like, you know, that doesn't mean I support Nazis. Like that's so stupid. Like
no,
obviously
I'm
I'm
not
against that
saying
shit.
that.
Like
I'm not
trans
I'm
people
not
are killed by
saying that.
Nazis, you know?
I understand that. And that's because of normalcy theory, right? It's the idea that if you are not normal, then you are not worth enough to even be alive because you're not conforming to society. So get rid of everything that isn't conforming with society. I'm just trying to explain that the words that you're using have been used as a justification to genocide people who look like us, like you said, during the Holocaust, because of normalcy. Would you?
Yeah.
So that's the danger of using the word normal. Because
Yeah.
we're all part of society, right? Regardless if you feel quote unquote normal or not, we all belong in society, which you have said that nobody deserves to die because they're not normal. Yet there are people who believe that they do deserve to die because they're not normal. So when you espouse that there is a normal way of being trans, which is assimilating into society, people who don't do that, therefore aren't normal and are degenerate.
Well, I mean, like, I believe that people should be normal, but like, there's like different extremes to that belief. Like, I could like just because I believe something doesn't mean I believe the most extreme version of that belief, and just because they're an extreme version of that belief is harmful doesn't inherently mean that like that belief has to be bad. Like,
I'm,
you know what I'm saying?
I get
Like
what
that
you're
doesn't
saying.
mean everyone should just be degenerate. Like that. I mean, we have pedophilia and rape is illegal for a reason because that stuff is degenerate. Like we have stuff that should be degenerate. Like just, people just draw different lines on where the line should be. You know.
But okay, so you're saying, but the through line is that I think that humans that are just living their lives, that I feel like, they're doing nothing wrong, like let's say just a trans non-binary person that is just living their lives, just doing their thing, working in society, having a loving family, doing everything that, a human that is doing good in society is doing. I don't believe that they should be called not normal, because that is the first step into creating a world where not normal is going to be cast down upon regardless. So that's what I mean. So like you said, being not normal and degenerate is like rape and pedophilia and all of those type of things. But when you say that this category of people are not normal, you are also lumping in people who are trans that aren't like you, because it's
Uh,
all the dichotomy, right?
Yes, so like there are trans people who aren't normal, right? Like there are trans people who are and people who aren't, right? Like there's differences, you know. There's cis people who aren't normal. There's people who are straight and heterosexual, but they act very weirdly, and they would be considered degenerate by some people, you know. Like there's a lot of like different things that can make somebody that. So like just because someone is trans doesn't mean that they're necessarily normal. I mean, there's a lot of people who are trans that are not normal.
Okay, and what do you mean by not normal?
I mean, they don't act like normal people typically act. They don't
Like
have the same societal
murderers and
values.
killers?
That's not what I
Like,
mean. They
well, I
just
mean
act weird. Like,
society.
you know,
What do
cringe
you mean
culture,
act
right?
weird? Yeah, I know
Like
cringe culture, but
they act cringe. Like
But does that mean they don't deserve to be a part of society?
I'm not saying they don't deserve to be part of society. I just think those people need help and like should be encouraged to, become a more active, productive, normal member of society. I think instead of like, being like bigoted and hateful, we could be nicer to these people and be like, hey, listen, you should be like, we should help them become more normal.
But you're being prescriptive of people who feel they are being just normal humans. They're not doing anything wrong. Like
Someone
are
cannot
you
do.
saying that being cringe is wrong? Like morally wrong, like unjustifiable, they
It
need to be
is.
corrected.
It is harmful. If anything, if not for anything else, it's like harmful to themselves because it makes them like harder to like get along in social spaces. It makes them an outcast. It's like it's inherently
Not
harmful to
necessarily.
that person. Yeah. And also it makes
Not
everyone else around them
necessarily.
feel uncomfortable too. So like there is like harm there. Like people don't want to acknowledge it. Like
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? Like people just want to be
Okay.
like, oh well actually it really isn't like there is some harm caused by it.
Okay, so that brings me back to the drag question. So when I first came out as a trans woman, drag even before always kind of made me feel like, this isn't what I am, right? Because I knew that I was a woman. I came out at 34 years old. I was born and raised in Texas. I was in the Navy. It took me a long time to be able to find the words of me being a trans woman, but I've always been
I'm so
trans.
sorry. That sounds bad.
Yeah,
Welcome to Chud
it was
Nation.
very bad, especially
And the
being in the
thing
Navy as a
gifted a
boy.
tier 1
It was the
sub to
worst.
Defo, certain.
Yeah, so like I always felt
You
uncomfortable
passed well, by the way. You
because
passed well.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But that's not the goal though. I just want to be comfortable in my own body, right? I don't care if people know I'm trans. I tell people I'm trans all the time. But so
Welcome
when
to Chud
when
Nation.
when I first was introduced to drag culture, what made me uncomfortable with it back then was I'm not a cis guy that wants to dress as a woman sometime. Right. Because, I was somebody that felt like I wanted to be a woman all the time, and drag culture didn't fulfill what I thought I wanted to be. So the issue with, I think, and this is something that I think that we can expound upon, is the fact that I think the issue, and this is my opinion, and I know a lot of trans women who also have similar beliefs around drag, but it's not because they hate drag people or people who are drag or weird or non-conforming. It's the fact that society picks drag people, people who are in drag, or drag performers, as the catch-all for all trans people or trans women in particular. Which, I mean, if somebody says, oh, one of the things that annoy me, right, if I'm walking around and people are like, oh, you're trans, do you watch RuPaul Drag Race? I'm like, no, that's not my culture. That's not me, right?
I
But
agree, yeah.
that's not their fault, right? People understand trans culture because of through drag a little bit, because it was framed wrongly in society, and we're now walking back and saying, hey, drag isn't actually trans women, but trans women are trans women. And that's why trans women are becoming more in society, and it's like, oh, these are trans women, and we want to, because there is like this idea of that trans women are not drag queens, right? And I think we can all agree to that, and I think it's important to make that distinction. But we can't say drag queens are bad for society because they make people feel like there's a caricature of what trans people look like. I don't think that's the drag queen's fault. It's society's fault for making it seem like this is what trans is. And when I started to understand that more and more, I was able to identify that it's not the drag queen's fault that society decided to put all of their thoughts around it. So when bigoted, hateful people say drag queen story hour, but they're really going against trans people when they say that, that's frustrating, because it's like, wait a minute, that's not the same thing, right?
I think there's a naivety there. I think there's like a direct correlation between like drag people causing the harm. Like obviously that's like saying like, oh, this person like using racial slurs and being edgy online on purpose isn't actually contributing. Like it's not their fault that they're contributing to like racist, like homophobic, like bigoted behavior. They're just doing
I don't
memes,
think
y'all. It's just meme culture.
drag
Like
queens aren't meme culture. Drag queens are people who actually want to perform and express themselves in that way, and that's valid. Like, you can't blame
it's
the
not the
drag
gender
queen because
identity.
of society. I know it's not, and they will tell you it's not. Like, that's what I'm saying. You're superimposing society's view on drag queens against a drag queen. Like it's the drag queen's fault for even existing. And that is where the issue lies, right? It's the fact that is as a person who is in drag is being demonized by the right wing and then also getting lumped in with all these other trans people at the same time. And that's not the drag queen's fault. Drag has been around for a very long time. It's integral to queer culture. It is something that was a very, very important for getting, queer rights where we are. And we need to understand their place in queer history. And we cannot demonize them and say, okay, you've done your job, get out. That's just not going to work. And so that's why we have to be able to, as trans people, say, hey, I understand that you think that a drag queen is trans, but actually trans is this. And you can use that as a launching point to help redefine what trans actually is. And, it's just not conforming with the gender that you were assigned at birth. That's what trans is. And you live that way, not in a performance manner, but just as the human in everyday life. So do you understand what I mean? So I can understand where the uncomfortability comes from people in drag, but it's not the drag performer's fault. It's society that has used them as a pawn to use drag queen as a transphobic trope that makes people feel like, oh, I don't want trans people that look like drag queens around my children, right? Which is stupid and wrong and not even correct anyway. But drag queens have been used as a political pawn to weaponize against trans people, but don't fall for that, right? Don't fall for the political juxtaposition that the right wing has put on trans people. You see what I mean? You shouldn't go after each other. We should be going after the people that are weaponizing them against us too.
That's the thing though, is I think you're admitting that like this is something that like has an inherent harm, an inherent cause, that these people are causing harm to something, but like you're denying like the blame. Like you're just saying, well, oh yeah, they did cause us, and I'll admit that they caused it, but it's actually ignorant society's fault.
It's not, they didn't cause it. They didn't cause it by see, and Rose, this goes back to normalcy, right? They're going to go to the people who are quote unquote not normal and use them as a political pawn to weaponize against us, right? And that's the problem with normalcy. The fact that they're trying to say, oh, these people aren't normal, look at them, point at them, and then use their existence as a pawn to completely deny trans people the access to medications, therapy, and even existing socially as trans people, because that's what's happening. And it's not the drag queen's fault. It's society that is trying to say these people aren't conforming into society, therefore trans people shouldn't exist in society. And that's what's being used. So when you propagate that language, you're responding in the affirmative and like, yeah, the right wing's right, that isn't normal, so yeah, go ahead and continue to use that. That's simply how it goes.
Look, I agree that like it's also wrong what the conservatives are doing, but I tend to focus more about the source of like what is causing this, like where does this stem from, instead of looking at like the root. Like I go to the root of the problem. I go to the
which
root
is
of the
normal.
problem. That seems to be the drag queens and shit that cause the misconceptions. Instead of like I don't look at the symptom and then like go after the symptom. I try to go deeper than that. And to me, that drag queen seems to be more that stems from.
No. You are dealing with the symptom, which is drag queens being weaponized against trans people. The system, the root is people in society feel that they need to be all normal and conform to each other. That's the root. And you are propagating the root and trying to point at drag queens as the problem. And that's exactly what normalcy does. Do you understand? The root is normalcy. The root is the ideology that you're holding on to, that you have to be normal. Huh?
Dude, normalcy is based though. As a trans woman, I can fall into normalcy.
Normalcy? Normalcy is what you think is the problem, drag queens, but drag queens being weaponized against us is a result of normalcy theory. Do you understand that? You're saying, oh, I'm going after the root, drag queens. No, the root is the fact that people believe that normalcy is the goal. So therefore, anybody who doesn't conform in that, i.e. drag queens in this example, is the problem, so therefore trans people are the problem. It's normalcy where it starts, not where drag queens are. Does that
You
make
can be
sense?
normal as a trans woman, but you can't be normal as a drag queen. Like, I can just be a normal woman. A drag queen, by definition, is going to be a freak show. Because that's what they
I
are.
don't think trans women in society are seen as normal. I think that's a lot of that's just
They're
that's
not, but they
something.
can be. We can
What do you
have a
mean
society
can
that
be?
treats them as normal. Well, I
But
just am
there
seen as a normal woman. Like, I have people who wouldn't be super trans positive, but like, people in my life just see me as a normal woman. You know?
I mean, same for me now, right? But
Yeah.
but
So
that's
that's
not
my
the
point.
goal. But that
That is
doesn't
my
make
goal.
like well,
That's why I
that's your goal.
transitioned in the first place. Like, what? Yeah,
That's
of course.
fine, and that's fine. But the thing is, you are using your experience as a weapon against other trans people who don't conform the way that you do. That's the issue.
And I'm okay with
You,
that. As someone who's personally affected by it, I'm okay with that. I have my group of
But you-
people that I'm for, and that's what I care about.
that's fine. But to go on a public platform and say, "Oh yeah, these non-normative trans folks that the way that you're saying are the issue, so I'm against them," kind of makes you kind
Yeah.
of like a Blair White, right? Or somebody like
Blair,
that.
like,
Is
I've heard that before.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of true, right? Because as I think I've heard, you said that you at least need to be doing HRT to be considered trans, and to me, I think that is extremely dangerous, and it's kind of like don't look at me, look at the weird people over there, right? It's like trying to be last in line
Yeah, exactly.
like
they look at the crazies. They're not looking at me.
but
That
they
seems like a
are
good
looking
point.
at you though. I know, but going
No.
stealth.
If they attack, think about it this way: when gay people are getting rights, they attack trans people, and now I say, well, instead of attacking trans people, how about we attack the xenogender people? Then people are going to be more accepting of like the normal people.
Listen,
and not the xenogender
this conversation
people,
I feel is looping. We brought Wick in to bring some sense to the proceedings.
Sure.
Oh,
Wick,
I don't know if we're
welcome
gonna
back.
I don't know if we're gonna bring any sense. But Josie actually said something that I kind of want to pick your brain on a bit because I think I strongly disagree with you. You talked about normalcy theory, right? And this idea that normal is used as a tool for oppression, et cetera, et cetera. Is that the TLDR of it, basically?
That normalcy is used as a tool, yes, to basically say, okay, these are the normal ones and these are not the normal ones, so get them out of society anyway.
I understand, but I think that and we may not actually have a disagreement here. It may simply be again you're talking with Rose there and bouncing off each other, so maybe I misheard. It's very possible, but I think that we shouldn't denigrate the idea of making transness normal, right? Making it a normal thing in society to be trans or to be.
I already think it's normal to be trans. Like it's completely normal to be trans.
But we want
it's
society.
Just a society, right?
Yeah, but we want to move society so that society accepts it as normal. Yes.
Right.
Okay, then we don't have an actual disagreement. I'm sorry, because it sounded like you were arguing the opposite. It sounded, at least from the audience perspective, that you were arguing that we shouldn't want to be normal, that we should celebrate our differences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, we should celebrate our differences because all humans should be normal. I think when the normalcy is gone awry, if somebody is going and killing people, raping people, causing crimes, doing all of those things, we have societal expectations in the social contract of doing things that, hey, if you commit crimes, you're going to go to jail or you're going to do all those things.
That has nothing to do with normalcy. That has to do with not hurting other people. It's not about being normal in that case. That isn't the point of why we punish those crimes. We don't punish them because they're not the norm. We punish them because they're hurting other people. It being normal or normal has nothing to do with it.
Well, I mean, kind of, right? Like the idea that like it's pretty normal in society to not murder people, right? Like we don't want murderers in our society because that is detrimental to our society, right? Like what should be seen in society is just to be a human being that is, being productive, living their lives, not hurting anyone, doing all of that. That is like what it takes to be like a productive member of society, regardless of how you look, and all of those things. That has zero to do with it. But right now in society, people are using characteristics of the way that they look as a justification to deny people rights. So, for example, right now they would use Drag Queen Story Hour as a reason.
No, I understand that. No, I
you
get
know,
that.
that's what I'm saying, right?
I
So,
don't
like,
disagree with that.
yeah, but they're using normalcy as the reason,
Okay.
right? This isn't normal, right? And
Well,
that's where I think that's where the danger is.
I mean, mostly they're using or they're at least trying, and I think in a very bad faith, false way to say that it's hurting children, right? Like that's their argument. Their argument isn't this isn't normal. Their argument is this is grooming children. That's their argument, that this is causing harm to children.
But grooming children to do what?
To be LGBT, to they making them gay, making them trans. It's wild.
So
right?
making them not normal.
Again, you're missing the point here. They're saying that this is pushing an ideology on someone. It's indoctrination. That's their argument. And to be clear, I don't believe this argument, but this is their argument. It doesn't have to do with normal.
But they will also say that it's very normal to be Christian and go to church every Sunday and doing all of those things, and that indoctrination happens, and that's not normal either.
Well, this is
right?
just I think we're just disagreeing on semantics here.
Sure,
but I don't want to. I know
fair.
there's other people in line. I didn't mean to skip lines.
Sure, there are, and
You're good.
I will. Yeah, I will. Thank you so much, because I thank you for clarifying, because essentially what we're trying to do is not use justifications of the way people look and calling that form of thing degeneracy, because that justifies the elimination of people.
I agree.
Certain
And
classes of
yeah,
people.
okay, fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
Bye bye. Thanks again, Chud. Bye.
Awesome. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Yeah, and then finally, I'll wrap it up, because you're right, Chud. It was kind of going in a circle. So Rose, I just want to just say that trans people, like you would agree that a trans woman, a trans man, and a trans non-binary person all need different needs and also have different societal outcomes based on those identifications, correct?
Trans and like non-binary people? Or are you saying trans and what? Okay,
Like
yeah,
trans
we have
women,
different needs.
trans, yeah, we do have different needs, right? And trans non-binary people too, right?
I don't know if you can be trans and non-binary. Like, I don't like the trans non-binary label. You're trans or you're non-binary. Like, I don't buy the whole he, they, she, they shit. Like, But
well,
like
pronouns as language. I'm not talking about language. I'm talking about gender identity.
Okay, well, I think that non-binary people and trans people, typically speaking, have different wants and needs. I can't speak for everybody, but it feels like our general goals for society seem to be different from the experiences that I've had.
Sure, right? So the idea that not all trans people are going to conform a certain way to society because we all have different needs and we all have different feelings. Like, for example, you and I have gender dysphoria. That is something that we have, and that's something that we strive to alleviate, right? That's something that we do. But a trans non-binary person may have a very slight discomfort, but not need to completely change their body, but they're still trans in the sense that they don't identify as cis. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I guess that they're trans. I'd have to I don't understand their experience because it's so different from my own. So it feels weird to call them. It feels weird to put them under the same label with me when their experience from mine is so different, and that's where a lot of my problems lie.
Sure,
but
would you agree that also, just within the women category, that Black women and white women have different needs as well, right? Just because you don't understand the experience of a Black woman doesn't make it less valid, right?
I mean, when you're talking about race, race is completely different from gender. The two don't really have I guess you can talk about intersexuality or whatever. But I think the experience of being a Black woman is just a combination of being Black and being a woman.
Okay, let's say there are two white women that one can give birth and one can't give birth. Like those are two different experiences, but you don't you wouldn't know, just like I wouldn't know what it's like to give birth. But does that make our experience less valid as women?
No, it absolutely doesn't. Just because
So
I've
it
never.
wouldn't. Right, exactly. So it wouldn't
Yeah,
make a trans non-binary's experience less valid just because you don't understand it, right?
I would say. Okay, first of all, there's cis women who don't get pregnant either. You know what I'm saying? Like, also, a
That's what I
trans
mean.
non-binary person isn't going to be a woman. They're going to be inherently different from me. Whereas I see myself in the woman category, they see themselves in a completely different category. So comparing
And
me to another cis woman, we both identify as women. We both identify as the same thing, essentially. Whereas the trans non-binary person, they identify as something completely different from me. We don't have the
no,
same end goal.
that's
So it's
actually
like inherently a different thing here.
no, because they all identify, or not all, but a lot of non-binary people identify under the umbrella of trans. So therefore, we're all trans. It's just that we have different shades of trans, of how we experience the world differently because how we were assigned at birth, a lot of intersections and things like that. So the lack of understanding of what the experience of a trans non-binary person doesn't make their validity as trans people less valid. Exactly, like I don't know the experience of a trans man, right? Other than they're trans and their gender doesn't conform with mine, right? But that doesn't mean I don't believe trans men don't exist, because I, for some reason, don't understand trans men experiences, which I don't. All I can do is kind of sympathize and understand what it's like being trans, and use that to understand, okay, this is hard in society to be trans, and that's important, and we need to fight for all rights, because their rights are under attack just as much as ours, right?
Okay, a trans man is obviously trans. Somebody who doesn't identify as either gender, or calls himself quote unquote trans non, they're not having the same experience that I do.
How do you know that? Like, the idea of being misgendered to a trans person, to a trans non-binary person,
Some
is just as
similarities,
hurtful.
but they're not trying. The idea of me just being a normal woman is inherently different from what they are going for. We actively we do not have the same end goals. We have different end goals. And
Yeah,
to
but
call
that
us the
doesn't
same
make
thing
their
or put us
experience.
in the same label,
I'm
it
not.
seems silly. I'm not saying they're not valid. I'm just saying they're not the same as me. That's it. That's fine.
That's fair. It's fair, but the issue is when you become prescriptive, which you have done, right? Which you basically say, because they don't have this experience and they don't do these things, therefore they are not valid as my identity label. And that's just not how labels work, right? You can't sit there. You can't like if somebody
I'm
was like, oh,
trans-medicalist, yeah.
okay, and you do understand that trans medicalism is very hurtful to a lot of people, right? Like a lot of trans people.
Okay, first of all, this is a ideology that is very it's not even that prevalent. It's not it's most people don't believe this. It's very fringe. It doesn't have a lot of systemic power in society. This is just trans people who want to feel seen and are shut out in every single group that they go to. The trans community constantly shuns out people who are trans medicalists. Cis society doesn't really take us seriously. Nobody takes us seriously. So you can call us harmful
That's not
whatever you
true.
want, but we don't have
That's
any
not true.
power in anything.
Look,
We wish
that
we
is
did, but we don't.
no.
We're not harmful to anyone.
Then people like Blair White and Buck Angel wouldn't be popular if that was the case. The thing is, legislators and lawmakers and people who have power use trans medicalist arguments to try to justify their exclusion of a lot of trans people. So therefore,
Dude, I
if
wish
you
they
do,
did. How many trans folks have you seen that use
so
trans medicalist
you are
arguments?
creating you are creating material harm. That's all I wanted to say, right?
What?
Is that you just admitted to it. So you said you wish that lawmakers would be more
Use
trans
trans
medicalists
medicalist
and
arguments
create
because they would be
more.
more trans inclusive than they currently are. I wish Republicans
That's
had
not.
trans medicalist arguments. Yeah.
They do have trans medicalist arguments, though.
How?
That you have to have bottom surgery to be in certain spaces, that you have to be able to transition and assimilate into society, Rose.
No, these people
That's what
are
they
not
want. They
trans
want you to
medicalism is
assimilate.
trans inclusive. These Republican lawmakers, a lot of them are not trans inclusive at all. They probably look at trans medicalism and think that it was a little extreme for them. Because it's at the end of the day, I just want to be seen as normal. I think a lot of these people in power
You are a
prefer
normal
people
trans
not
woman.
transitioning. Yeah, I know. A lot of people just don't want us to see us transition at all. They don't want kids to transition. They don't want all these. I'm pro kids transitioning. I mean, I transitioned at 14. I want to
Yeah,
see that on other trans people.
I think that yeah, me too. And I think that colors your view of the way that the world actually is, because most people don't get the transition at that time and have to wait and are forced to wait, and it's because of the fact that people say, oh, this isn't a good thing, right? And so I think that your view of this is very colored because you were able to transition at 14. You were able to just say, see, I just developed as a female. You didn't have to really go through male puberty like a lot of trans people do.
No, and I'm very privileged in that.
You are very privileged in that, but you understand that that colors your point of view, that everybody should
I
live
mean, as
like you
privileged as
because
a
it's
trans person can
better.
be, but yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly,
think I would
right?
prefer people if they could transition earlier. I think that would make them happier. Like, you know, I
I
don't
think
think people sit there. You know what I'm saying?
I know, but they will be weaponizing trans identities. And that's what it is. Your arguments that you are making is making the quality of life for other trans people worse if, like you said, legislators picked up your point of view, which they have in a lot of cases. There's over 300
If
anti-trans
they're
bill legislations right
Oh
now.
no. That is not what I'm advocating for. If they picked up my point of view, the world for trans people would be significantly better than it currently is. If they
I
decided to
disagree.
put into law the stuff that I believe, like trans rights would be
Like
better in a lot of conservative states than they are right now. So I don't buy this argumentation.
except for the people who don't medically transition, which is a lot of people.
But
Which is a lot of
I think that
people.
they have the right to exist. I think that people like that's so silly. Like
Except
I don't want to take
but
anything
you don't
away from them. I just
but
want
you're
like a
trying to
cultural
take the
difference
trans label.
that
You
advocates
literally
for
try to take
normalcy.
you're trying to take the trans label away from non-binary people. You're
Well, I
literally
just
trying to take things
personally,
away from people.
all I said was I personally just don't believe that they should call themselves that. I'm not advocating for their rights to get taken away. I have never advocated for that. I've never said
Other
that.
people will use your arguments to do that, though. That's what I'm
Well,
trying
then
to
I
say.
don't agree with
It's
those
naive.
people. That's so silly. Like, yeah,
Then
I don't agree with that.
you are espousing harmful views. That's what I'm telling you. And as a trans person, if you really do believe that personally, great. But to go on a platform and say all of these things that are prescriptive creates material harm for trans people, because it's like, oh yeah, that's a good trans. I'm going to make sure that everybody stays exactly like that trans person. And it completely alienates more than half of the trans community. And I say more than half because it's actually more than half. Not
Okay,
everybody gets
well,
the opportunity to transition or want to, which is fine
yeah, but like,
with
how
medicine.
is what I'm saying going to harm someone who doesn't want to transition? Like, I don't see that. Like what I'm advocating for isn't going to suddenly like legislatively change anything. If they don't transition in the first place, like what I say, performing like that's not going to really impact them in any way. It's not going to prevent them
It
from doing anything.
You're trying to
Like,
erase non-binary people. That harms people.
my best friend is non-binary. Like, I've
So
talked to
are they
people. Like,
trans?
I kind of. I think that they would
Okay,
say that they have like experiences that are similar, but they're like, I don't know. I'd have to ask them about that.
yeah,
But I'm not really sure.
so that's what I mean. You are taking a platform you really don't understand, are making these giant general prescriptions of non-binary people aren't trans, and then I just asked you, are non-binary people trans? You're like, maybe I need to ask. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
You
hold
need to
on.
do a little bit
No,
more research on this before you
hold
start
on.
making prescriptions.
Hold on. I think that we should call like a non-binary person should be called non-binary. People like if anyone calls themselves non-binary trans, that's silly. It's just going to lead to misconceptions. Just call yourself non-binary. I think that they share certain aspects that are similar to being trans. I would say that they're different things, though.
They
Like,
trans non-binary. We've already discussed that, right? Trans non-binary and trans women and trans men all have different needs, but that doesn't take away their transness.
well, I think that
Okay,
trans
listen,
implies that
sorry.
you need to transition.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
we're going.
that's fair. I need to
I'm
get back to work.
no, it's fine. I'm worried we're not going to make a breakthrough here, but listen, I really appreciate you coming on.
I think we did make a breakthrough.
Okay.
I think we did make a breakthrough. Like Rose doesn't know what non-binary trans people are. She needs to ask, and I think that's important.
Just hit me up on Twitter. We can talk about this some other time, okay? If you want
Okay, sounds good.
do this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks,
Great.
Chud, for having me on. All right,
Pleasure.
bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
RedPenny, hello. Thank you for waiting. People were asking for, Ginger to come on, but I think it's only fair that you have a crack at the whip.
Okay, I'll try and make it relatively brief. I mean,
Well, no, don't rush yourself. I feel bad. You'll wait for ages. Take your time, okay?
Oh,
fair enough.
no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I've got all day. Like I'm
So,
not gonna
just personal curiosity. What is? I assume the name is one that you chose for yourself.
It is actually. My last name, funny enough, is not the same last name I was born with, and I did that for a reason. I didn't
That's
want
what I
people
figured.
to connect it. Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
that makes
I
sense.
love
But are you French at all? Or?
So I'm like 50% Cuban, and like the Cuban side of my family is French. So I guess I think like French and like Spanish or something. Like, yeah, I have that side of me, and then I have like the German side of me. I have like part like Irish, like part all these other things. I'd have to look specifically. I don't know what I am. Very European. That's why I look white because I am like. But yeah, I do have some French in me. That's where the last name comes from.
I wondered
But
if
I'm
you
not
knew
like
just how many people would sort of like mispronounce it, because it's not the French pronunciation Mulet isn't common for people outside, particularly in America. Because in Britbongerland, we learn French as our second language more commonly than we do like Spanish, which happens in America.
Oh, really?
I
don't know.
Why did you choose like Mule, as your name?
So the reason I chose it is because Mulet is my grandmother's maiden name. So I was in a car ride with my mom once, and we were like, I was basically like thinking of changing my name, right? And she basically tells me like, oh, how about Mulet? She's like, oh, that's my mother's maiden name. And I just, for whatever reason, ever since I heard that, I was like, that sounds really pretty, and that worked because I was thinking at the time I wanted to change my last name. I didn't want it to be tied to like, first of all, I'm a very public person, right? I don't want my family to be associated with anything that I do online because I say some controversial shit, and it's like if people want to attack me for that, fine. But like I don't want people attacking the people in my personal life who like disagree with me and don't want anything to really do with me in this regard. They still love me, you know.
I'm not saying you should have chosen, and you've chosen a name. You should have gone by your given name. But and I was just curious why you chose that particular name. It seems like you've got a personal connection. No, why you've got a personal connection to it, so it makes sense now. It's like why people ask why ChudLogic chose to be called ChudLogic.
Well, I mean, yeah, my name is just my name. Like I chose it when I transitioned. Like ever since I was like 14, 15, 16. I don't remember when.
That's cool. Let's move on.
I changed it later. Yeah. Okay.
So do you kind of see yourself as maybe like a Mr. Girl who actually became a girl?
That's actually funny. So when you mentioned Mr. Girl, like I think people like I talked to Mr. Girl before Destiny did. So like the funny thing is I saw his cuties thing and something about him like fascinated me. I saw that he was like growing a fan base and stuff. And I noticed that like people actually liked him and that like fascinated me. It's like he just brought up very interesting. Like I don't agree with a lot of stuff he says, but I thought that he like was a good filmmaker. Like his videos were like well edited, and like he said things in a way that like I thought he had a lot of potential. I saw him blowing up on YouTube, so I wanted to get in while I still could, and I basically asked if I could interview him. Although I'm not gonna lie, he did kind of creep me out a little bit, which is kind of what prevented me from doing it earlier. No offense to him. I think he's cool. We just disagree on stuff. So he's a very interesting character. I think I'm similar to him in some aspects, but like I'm different from him in a lot of aspects too. Like I'm controversial online, but like if you go to my interview with Mr. Girl, like when it comes to trans issues specifically, like we disagree. And I spent like the majority of like the first like half of the interview I did with him basically talking about like why his cuties review was bad. He was basically saying to me like why I needed to just like basically like I don't know. I would basically tell him like, well, actually, this isn't normal. Like, oh, obviously this is bad. He was basically telling me like, you shouldn't say obviously this is bad. Like, stop saying stuff. Like, it was a very weird conversation. I don't know how to describe it. It's like we are different, but I think we do share similarities in that we both air our controversial opinions online without much of a filter. Like that aspect we have. But when it comes to actual beliefs and stuff, like I think he would call himself a feminist, and he's like anti-trans stuff. I'm not a feminist, and I'm pro-trans stuff. It's like there's a lot of beliefs.
Oh, I mean, in some respects, yes, but in other respects, people would say no.
Yeah, like so.
You don't seem totally on board with, say, non-binaries advocacy.
I mean, yeah, but like as a trans woman myself, obviously I'm like pro-trans, and like some of the stuff he said to me when he was talking to me sounded very turfy, and it bothered me. So like I don't agree with him on the trans stuff at all. Like he has a whole series, like he did like this transel culture thing about why like trans people are like not valid and stuff. I'm just like okay.
Well, that's
I
the
don't agree with
similarity
you.
that I kind of see in you guys. You both come from your very personal kind of perspective, and it does seem like you're kind of exclusionary of outside perspectives and resist them quite stubbornly in a way.
Yeah.
And that's there's not stubborn. Your obstinacy isn't necessarily a bad thing if you've got a correct take. But some would argue that your takes are sometimes kind of trash. But you are that trash takes are one way to get attention on the internet, which does seem to be your primary goal.
Look, some people believe my takes are trash, and that's fine. I just have a different perspective on a lot of things. And sometimes they could be right, sometimes they could be wrong. I just think there's a validity and a unique thing that I'm offering here, and I'm willing to learn through process. Also, I'd love to interview Mr. Girl again. I think we could talk again. So if anyone can make that happen, that's cool. But yeah, when it comes to my own perspective,
I can make that happen. No problem. Don't worry.
Chud?
Yeah, 100%. We'll get that set up. Okay.
Yeah, he knows who I am.
Never lose an opportunity to network and chill.
He should tell him of all the controversy I've had. I've made a name for myself. I think he'd be surprised that I because at the time no one really knew who I was. A few people did for other things, but it has a pretty small channel. So yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess the pride that you're getting in terms of getting people to just riling people up with takes that they can't quite understand how anyone would have such an aversion to that rape X thing. But anyway, let's go back. We don't want to relitigate that one because Hunter's done that to death. I was going to say that isn't you actually transitioning, breaking gender norms, and yet you're taking sort of a position where you want to protect gender norms in a way.
No, but I love gender norms. That's the thing. As a trans woman specifically, I am pro gender norms. That is the whole thing. Gender
but
norms
even
allow me to be
transitioning
female.
is something that sort of transgresses the rigidity of particularly the gender norms that we've had, let's say a few decades ago, since they have been changing quite rapidly in the last few years.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is there's some people that try to change it in norms from what they were, and I want to revert it back a little bit, because I don't think that some of the feminist idea of what gender is. I fight against that because I'm strongly attached to the idea that there are different gender roles and that they're important. It's important to have men and women act certain ways.
But as someone who does, you do a little parody. I mean, your Simp Nation obviously was self-aware, right?
Yeah, it's a funny meme song.
Yes, it's a bit satirical,
and my SEO strategy was amazing. That's why I went viral. My SEO strategy,
and just the right level of cringe to get people, to look at it and go, "Oh my god, is this shit real?"
Oh my god! No, so, people were doing cute friendship couples for that song. Okay, people liked it for what it was. Okay, it was funny.
I'm sure some people unironically loved it, of course. But
yeah, hundreds of thousands of views.
I would argue that the reason people highlighted it was because it was cringe. But
come on. There's a little bit of cringe there, but people like it just depends on who you ask. Some people thought it was cringe. Some people thought it was funny. It's a comedy song. It doesn't take itself that seriously, but I make serious.
That leads into my point in terms of the way that people have engaged with gender, particularly drag, is that it is subverting it, and both doing it for comedic means and for thought-provoking, with thought-provoking goals in mind. And so I don't see why you have such an aversion to that when it is simply a performance in a way, as well as people starting a conversation. Sorry?
No, you're comparing my meme song on TikTok to drag?
No, I'm not.
Is that what
That's
you're doing?
not the
I'm confused.
I'm saying that I was simply sort of trying to connect with you as someone who engages in a bit of comedy to realize that the performative nature of drag and how it isn't necessarily harmful for people to subvert norms. That's the beauty of satire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against satire in itself, but when it comes to performing yourself as an identity that you don't identify as, I think there could be harm that's caused by that. I'm not saying that satire is evil. I'm not saying you can't have jokes. You can even have problematic jokes. I mean, have you seen my Twitter? I make problematic jokes all the time, but it's different. I don't perform myself as an identity that I don't identify as. I'm very clear in who I am when it comes to like gender and like, race and stuff. Like I don't pretend to be something that I'm not.
You just sometimes pretend to have takes. No, I'm just trolling you a little bit.
I mean, unless you think that me being a woman is like, I mean, there's transphobe people who are like, oh, well, you pretend to be a woman and you're not. It's like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to engage with like actual transphobes because it's so obviously not true. But like, you know what I mean, right? Like,
But isn't that part of the higher level conversation that we have about gender in terms of, is it not all in a large aspect of it, a performance in terms of trying to strive towards norms that aren't necessarily achievable by everyone? Every man can't be the manliest man, but they might feel pushed like they have to be, and so that's where the non-binary aspect comes into it. In terms of that's a place for people to be when they don't feel particularly connected to these norms that society has created for them.
yeah, I understand. Like, there's going to be some people who don't agree with the norms. They feel comfortable, like, expressing themselves in a non like normative way. Like, yeah, there's always going to be people like that, and it's like, I that's the thing. I've talked to people about this. It feels very weird to be that person who like tells people, no, you can't, you shouldn't do this. Like, it's a very uncomfortable position to put myself in, and I don't like doing it.
But you do
You
it
know,
anyway. Why?
but I do it because I generally think that societally speaking, it causes me harm. So I think it's like the better thing to do. But like, it makes me feel really shitty. Like, you know what
Do you
I'm
not think
saying?
that goes back to the selfishness of your position in terms of you saying that? Is that not causing harm to other people who are just trying to find their way of expressing themselves?
Well, that's the thing is, I think we're all selfish. Like, if you are a black person, you're gonna care more about black issues and like feminism. If you're like a woman, you're gonna care more about feminist issues and black issues, right?
To a
There's always
degree,
inherent
yes.
there's always inherent selfishness that we
But the
advocate
key
for the
is the
things that affect
ability
us
to
most.
listen. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but the key is the ability to listen to other people's struggles and other people's points of view,
Oh,
and
I
and to
do.
empathize with them. What makes people angry about you is that you are solely going to acting for your own cause, and
Well, no one else
to
is gonna
perhaps
do
to the
it, so
detriment
I
of
got
other
it.
people.
Okay, but like that's the thing is like, could I be talking about starving children in third world countries? Yeah, but I'm not
No,
because
that's
I'm
not.
selfish and I care about what impacts me personally, and I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. Like, I think it's good to advocate for like, if I gotta advocate for myself, someone's got to. I don't think that's so
True.
wrong.
There are certain types of advocacy that is exclusionary, and I'd argue that yours is one of those.
Maybe it's
Okay,
exclusionary to some people.
let's start to wrap this up just so we can keep
Okay,
talking.
sure. No.
Okay.
Any final
Yeah, no,
comments?
I definitely. Sorry.
Just final comments, yeah.
Do you have any comments?
Well, I was just saying that I think it's quite hard to reach for you because you do have this very personal perspective on things, and it's fine to live in that way. But when it comes to having these large conversations with other people, it limits you in terms of what mutual understanding you can get.
That's fair.
But
Yeah,
that's just my personal opinion, Pat.
I don't talk to people expecting to change their mind, and I don't think they should come with me. I mean, if you can educate, like sometimes change can happen over time, but I'm not going to change my mind typically that often, and I don't think most people do. Most people aren't going to change their mind just to talk to someone once.
Anyway, thanks for having me on. I'll see
Pleasure
you
as
guys.
always,
Yeah,
mate.
thank
Have a good
you.
one.
Yeah, of course. So, what, one more caller?
Yes, hello. Finally, thank you for waiting. Sorry it took so long, but we're here now.
Yes. I feel bad. We're like
It's
two
just
and a
the
half
way it
hours
goes.
now into this.
It's all good. This is the last call, and then there's one final thing I've got to put to you, Rose. But
Totally fine. Yeah, I'm good. I can stay here. It'll be a 3-hour stream, but who knows how long. This person isn't talking.
no, it's because they're on mute. They're probably away from the desk or something.
Yeah, sorry about
Oh.
that. I was trying to make sure
No.
the sound was right before I jumped in.
Don't apologise. You've been waiting a while. Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and
No worries.
thanks for letting me come in and talk to you, Rose. I appreciate that too.
Yeah, of course. I
Um,
love talking to people. Yeah.
So I just generally have like a few questions. What is besides notoriety? What is your end goal in all of this?
Yeah. So my end goal is essentially to like inform people. Basically, like get to a point in society where people just see trans people and they see us as just like normal women. Whereas like it's not like this. I mean, that's really I want to change the way that people view trans issues because I feel like there's a lot of hatred based on misconceptions. Like people look at the fringes and like the crazy people, and that's how they view trans people. I want to avoid that and see like, hey, I'm normal. You like the trans people you think that are trans people. That's all we really are. This is what trans people actually are about. You know.
Do you think that you're getting to that goal by telling people that you have rape fantasies and that that girls don't have the right to wish death upon people who have raped them, that they're horrible people for considering that? Do you think that the things that you say on Twitter are coming back to you in a positive light and making people see you as maybe somebody who you respect, like Blair White, as opposed to Keffels? Because in my eyes, from the
first of all,
limited viewing,
I do not like. Sorry, no, what do you have to say? I'm listening.
No, that's fine. From my eyes, from the limited viewing of what I've seen from you, I know that you seem to have been all over the place. I respect that. But from my limited understanding of what I've seen on Twitter and what I've seen being on Stardust panel or any of these panels that you've been on, you've been trying to make a name for yourself with things that you don't even seem to necessarily agree with. It seems like even your most positive or negative takes, when somebody asks you about them, you're not even quite sure if you believe it yourself. So
I don't know
the way
everything,
that you're,
yeah.
well, you should know about your own opinions.
Well, I try to like,
but it
the,
doesn't come off that way. And when you get overexcited about somebody, saying, oh well, it comes off like a Blair point of view, like these aren't things that people are doing, saying like, oh, I really respect what you're doing. There's nothing respectful coming out of you on Twitter or in these spaces that makes people think, I really want to hear what she has to say. These aren't things that aren't going to make people jump at the chance to go look at an upload or a VOD that you have and be like, oh, I really want to know what she thinks. This is stuff that makes people go to lolcow and talk shit. Like this isn't the way to get to the goal that you yourself said that you have. Like you have to know that. Just looking back on like recent stuff that you've said on Twitter, like I even asked you this, what your goal was on Twitter, but I don't think that I had enough of a following for you to even care.
No, that's not that. Okay, I just had so many notifications that I didn't see all of them. So if you want to like send that tweet to me, I will respond to it. It's
similar to the question that I asked you here. Like I get what you feel like you want to do, but the way that you're going about it is not going to get you there. You're not gaining any respect from this. You're gaining lolcow status, and I don't want to see that coming from you, because if what you say is true and what you want isn't just the fame, it's to change people's mind about transgender people, this is not the way to go about it. This is not normal behavior. Telling women that they're 99.9999999% wrong to say that they to have ill will towards somebody who raped them is not something that's going to gain you respect, and it's not going to make people think, oh, she's normal and she represents normalcy in the trans community.
Okay, well, when it comes to that specific tweet, like I don't tweet stuff like that thinking that I'm doing things because I'm positive with trans people, right? Like being trans isn't all of like what I am. So like when I talk about trans issues, like yeah, like obviously, and also compare me to Keffels, like I do not like Keffels. I have a lot of like history with her. She's not like, that's a whole other conversation. So like when you talk about like this stuff, like I think the idea is like, I talk in these debates, and part of the reason I do these debates is to like understand my positions better, and I think that's a good thing to do. I think the more that I talk to people and the more that I have these discussions, the more that I learn about myself and the more I become better at doing these things. And I've noticed a difference in like, from when I started to now. I feel like I'm understanding myself better. I feel like it's been a very positive thing. And also earlier in this like chat, I like agreed with Chud that I'm gonna like I even said this on Twitter, like I think today or yesterday. I'm radically like gonna change the way I like do my content. I'm gonna like drastically get rid of like the more like controversial like trolling. Like I'm gonna be very more careful. I'm gonna put more thought into what I say, and I would just hope that like the streamers that I go on would like be more receptive to that and like be more willing to like give me like a better light. Like if you allow me to do that and you give me the opportunity to just like reform and just like do better, I think I can have much more productive conversations.
Haven't you done this before though? You've done this before where you're like, I'm going to apologize and do better, and then you do the same shit. You're basically looping all the time.
What makes you say that? First of all, like I've only been in this community for like a month and a half. Like when have I said this? Like
I feel like you go from community to community to community, doing this little trick where you fuck about for a bit, and then you go, "Oh, I'm reforming," and you're gonna be off to the next one.
Okay,
and
but like
desperate attempt for attention.
Like this is the first time I've ever spoken to you. Like I've never like that's the thing is like I'm older now than I was when I was younger. Okay, like I said, the controversial tweets that I made when I was 17, I don't believe those anymore, and I feel like I've become a better person from that. Right? Like I have some toxic traits I
the
could
rape
deal with.
tweet was recent, wasn't that?
Yeah, and I deleted it because I thought it was wrong. Like, and I debated it. I think the conversation I had with Stardust and I had in that, who else was there? Was it Gammy or was it Sleepy? I don't know who was there. That conversation, I think, was probably the best conversation I had about that because I really sat there and I really thought about it. And it came right after my Hunter Avallone debate, which wasn't the best, but it got me thinking about it. And I spent the whole day, like, really, like, responding to, like, tweets and, like, being criticized all over Twitter about it. It's like I think like having like people told me I shouldn't have these conversations, but I think if I didn't have these conversations, my takeaway would have been that my tweet was completely right and completely based. But because I had these conversations, I came up not thinking that, which is good.
The conversations aren't the problem, though. It's more so you come off bold and 100% in your feelings and 100% in saying like this is my opinion, this is how I stand, and then you come onto somebody's panel or on a one-on-one like you did with Stardust and you kind of like kowtow to what's going on in the conversation, but then go back to posting something randomly on Twitter. Like I don't watch your content myself, but I've seen you on other people's, and there's definitely a pattern there that would make people suggest that you're doing this just to get notoriety, and that nothing that you say can either be trusted because you either don't know if you believe it yourself. It is, but okay, it might not be true from your actual standpoint, but none of us can see that. None of us can see it because you haven't been consistent in your ideas or your ideals. And I have nothing against you, honestly. I don't like I said, I don't really know you from a hole in the wall. But I have seen the inconsistencies and why people, can't take you seriously. And I think that you're doing yourself a disservice by reacting the way that you do on Twitter.
Okay, but who's not taking me seriously? People on Twitter or people I talk to? Because I think the people that talk to me, like,
your audience is the one that's going to support you. These panelists aren't. Chud's not going to support you. Your audience is. And if you're making it so the audience can't connect with you on any sort of level because they don't know if you're trolling or not, or if you even know, or if you even believe 100% in what you're saying, they're going to turn you off. And you're gonna do yourself a disservice because if what you said is true and you want to make it better for the trans community and you want people to take you seriously, stop saying shitty takes on Twitter that people can't take seriously.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think that's the end of this conversation. Like that's the point that like I was gonna say is like I think that what we want here is just basically be less inflammatory on Twitter, and I think that makes everyone happy. Like I think it'd be better for everyone involved if I kept my same opinions on my panels and stuff where I'm like more better with my takes. Like that's not to me. I don't see it as me like. So the way I see it is Twitter, I'm inflammatory and impulsive, and that doesn't really represent what I truly believe. And I can understand why people think it does. I think that that's a me problem, right? I think when I'm on panels and I'm discussing my opinions like in a longer form, that's a better representation of my beliefs.
But it's very difficult. I get that, but it's very difficult for for people to understand that from the outside looking in. Because honestly, like I said, it's going to the point where it's like people just can't take you seriously, and they don't. And like I said, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice by acting the way that you do. And I hope that you are being genuine with me, and you're being genuine with the audience right now and yourself, because I feel like the even though you feel like you're gaining more and more, attention, and you're getting more steam, and you seem very excited about it, which, you should be, it's not the right kind of attention that you want, and that it doesn't last long.
You're right. And here's the thing is, I just wish that people would give me like a chance to like grow, and to give me a chance to like find my place in this space, That's really what I want at the end of the day. I don't want people to be like, oh, well, Rose trolled on Twitter, I'm not going to invite her to panels again. It's like, I feel like I have a lot that I can offer, and like a lot that I can learn as well by doing this kind of stuff. I just wish that people would just give me that chance. And I think I can like give my end of the deal and just stop saying the dumb shit that I say on Twitter. Like I can 100%, and I think I agreed to that earlier in the stream. Like I said that I need to stop doing that, and I'm fully on board with it. I feel like a lot of people, they see me say something on Twitter, and then they're just like, yeah, no, I'm not talking to Rose again. Rose is like, she's a bad person with bad beliefs. And it's like, I just wish that people would like see the humanity in me, see that like there is some genuine stuff that I have here. And I feel like a lot of people don't see me that way, and that's what frustrates me. And that's the stuff that's going to make me reclude back to my like extreme stuff on Twitter, is like, getting a lot of shit. I think if I had like these genuine conversations with like people who, treated me kindly, and people who respected me in the space, I probably wouldn't feel as much as the need to like be inflammatory on Twitter. And I shouldn't be inflammatory on Twitter. I should just like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, having hot takes is fine. Like, everybody has hot takes on Twitter. Twitter's a cesspool of hot takes. That's just what it is. But, when you're trying to grow yourself and you want people to take you seriously, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can't be wildly inflammatory one moment and then expect people to think that you're sincere the next. That's all I'm saying. And like I said, I hope that, things work out for you. I just kind of wanted to let you know how it comes across.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, and I'm looking at Zania's thing, and she's like, "This is why I like Rose as a person, but I don't like her takes." 100%. Yeah, I can totally see that. Like, that's the thing is, I'll be friends with people that disagree with me, and I would hope that people would feel the same way. And like, my opinions aren't set in stone. Like, there's some things that I feel strongly about, but there's some things that I'll admit I'm not the most educated person. I'm not the most informed person on a lot of these things. And so, like, when I hear other people give their perspectives, like, that's not automatically going to change my mind. It's going to make me think about it. And I think that there's a lot of value to that.
Well, I like I said, I hope that, things work out for you. That's pretty much all I had to say. Thank you so much for having me on ChudLogic. I appreciate it. And
Pleasure.
Thank you, Rose, for listening. I appreciate that too.
Yeah, you seem like a nice person. I'm hoping maybe we can talk in the future, because you seem cool.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good day.
Yeah.
Thanks. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Right. Rose, it's been a pleasure. There's one more thing I want to just show to you, okay?
Oh no, what's this going to be?
I mean nothing. You're someone that would you say that you've learned from, like, your past experiences on Twitter, and going to these different communities and having these issues, having these arguments, having these fights, stuff like that?
Let's say I've learned. I mean, what is this? I feel really like worried about what you're about to do. I feel I'm getting bad vibes here.
Well, what's the problem? If you've learned from what I'm about to show you, I don't think there's any particularly big issue here.
Just let me know what you're about to like show me, because I'm worried about it.
Honestly, it's nothing to worry about. Okay, I promise you. What I've got, I'm just going to go live here. So I've got this little tweet here. I'm not sure if you can see that exactly. Oh, here we go. So, from what I can ascertain, back in 2019 faked getting arrested and killed by the police, And then you put out a message saying, "Hey, this is Rose Mulet's family. You know, please be respectful as we mourn our daughter." And then you turned your Twitter account into a remembrance account for yourself. So what did you learn from that exactly?
There's a very personal story about something that happened that I don't want to get too in detail with. But some shit did actually happen that day. Like I don't want to go into full detail, but I think I think people like called like a wellness check onto my family. And so like there were actually police at my parents' house because people saw the thing that I posted on Twitter and they were like concerned. I think I posted like suicidal stuff on Twitter.
Sure,
I think that's what happened. I was like I was tweeting on how I wanted to like, you know, end my life or whatever. And then people got concerned about that. And so they called the police to my house. And so what happened was that day, the police were actually at my parents' house and they determined that I was fine. So they left and that nothing came from it. And so that's what I was like really scared about that. And that's what led me to do what I did, like said what I said. Obviously my mental health is like way better now than it was back then. Like I'm pretty chill, you know, like I say like my mental health's great right now for the most part. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
Are we putting this down to a little mental health break? Is that what we're saying? We had a bit of a mental health concern going on that led you to fake your death on Twitter.
That was pretty bad. But
I hate it when that happens.
Oh my god, I feel like you're just like.
The main thing is, no, I'm not. Listen, the main thing I'm trying to understand, what did you learn from this? Like, have you changed anything? Medication or anything like that?
I did learn from that, okay? And also I don't take medication because the medication I've taken has never been good for me. Like, I don't want to get into it. I've had bad experiences.
Sure. No, that's fine. Listen, I don't want to dig into all your personal experience. It's just, this kind of stuff, I just look at it and I just wonder, is this going to be something that you keep doing, the attention stuff and apologizing, the cycle?
It's not. No. That's the thing is like if you never get people to grow and learn from stuff, like that's going to lead to isolation. The isolation is going to lead to people doing that. If you isolate people and you don't let them evolve and grow, then it leads to this cycle. And what happened was these other communities were doing that to me. These other communities were like isolating me. They were saying like they wouldn't like let me be a part. Like that's what caused the harm. Do you understand?
Gotcha. Of course, yeah.
Why is it it's not up? And it's not. Someone else took these screenshots. They're not live on my Twitter profile.
No, this is someone. No, that's okay. Someone else could put these up, and it is from 2019. Just to be clear, and I mean, listen, I think tweeting out inflammatory takes about rape is probably worth them. Not as bad as faking your own death, is it? So that's an improvement, I'd say.
Oh my god, yeah, I cringe at my old self too. Okay, that's why it's like I cringe at it. Like, we all have our moments. We do have
our moments. We've all done crazy stuff. I mean, that is pretty crazy, but I get it. Difficult time. But listen, have you learned anything today?
I've learned some stuff today. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Well, I've had a great time having you on. I hope you had a good time too.
Thank you. I didn't expect it the last 3 hours, but it was a little happy surprise that it. I would suggest follow me on YouTube. I'm Rose Mulet on YouTube. I make some interesting content. Like I think I make some quality content. You can be the judge of that yourself.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll link it in chat.
Yeah, please do. Make sure you go and subscribe and check out Rose's videos. Thanks for coming on. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I want to get to 2K subs soon, guys. Come on, let's do it.
Okay, we'll make it happen.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. You do well. Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.